Staying consistent, I move with the clock. I'm in the zone, I'm not casting a stone. I'm finna stand on a rock, firm foundation. I got that dog in me, like 101 Dalmatian. I got girl with me, so I know that I'm still finna make it. I'm still finna take it. I hopped in the ring and I'm still going crazy. I cut off this sin like I just got a taper. I walk in the storm and then God gave me favor. I'm still going forward. I just had to lock in the Lord. I knew that I'm finna make it. Doing my old self, he got deported. Shout out to the king and I'm finna take
Let's get it.
What's going on, everybody? I'm your host, Zach Shoemaker, as a lot of people know me as SchuZ, and today we'll be kicking off the second episode of this week, this Thursday, the August the 15th, 2024 show. It's going to be a loaded show today to wrap up this week, and first off, I'll be joined by SchuZ Ramos Jr. He's one of the top guys in 154 weight class. We'll be having him in here in just a few short minutes, but I also will be getting to Eternal Echoes. We'll be breaking down the verse of the day. I'll be getting into basketball discussions. We'll be getting into combat currents. We'll be discussing fighting to wrap up the show. It's going to be a loaded episode. But before we add in SchuZ Ramos Jr., I want to make sure I talk to you guys about the verse of the day. It's going to be Psalm chapter 16, verse 8, which reads this: I keep my eyes always on the Lord. With him at my right hand, I will not be shaken. That's Psalm chapter 16, verse 8. So this time around, I'm going to do the interview first off. We'll be having the Eternal Echoes segment following this topic. So I want you guys to be able to reflect on this verse. The verse of the day should be going down across the bottom on the ticker on the bottom of your screen, so you guys can reflect on Psalm chapter 16, verse 8, kind of get an idea of what I'm going to be discussing today. And I'll be getting into that right after the interview with SchuZ Ramos Jr. But before that time comes, I will be going on a quick break real quickly to make sure I can get SchuZ in here, and then we'll get right to the show. You guys are not going to want to miss this interview, so I appreciate everybody for tuning in tonight on this show, and I'll see you guys in just a couple of short minutes while I add in SchuZ. See you guys soon. If you were to have the ball in your hands the whole game, you're the guy.
Staying consistent, I move with the clock. I'm in the zone, I'm not casting a stone. I'm finna stand on a rock, firm foundation. I got that dog in me, like 101 Dalmatian. I got girl with me, so I know that I'm still finna make it. I'm still finna take it. I hopped in the ring and I'm still going crazy. I cut off this sin like I just got a taper. I walk in the storm and then God gave me favor. I'm still going forward. I just had to lock in the Lord. I knew that I'm finna make it. Doing my old self, he got deported. Shout out to the king and I'm finna take it.
Welcome back, everyone, to the SchuZ Show. I'm excited to be able to welcome on a very special guest who I talked about right before we went on this break. He is currently 21-1. He's one of the top-ranked contenders in the 154 weight class. That's SchuZ Ramos Jr. SchuZ, appreciate you taking time to come on today, man.
Thank you, man. Appreciate your time, man. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I want to get right into this because first and foremost, we talked about you and you had a massive win just a few months ago now. And over the past couple of weeks, though, we've seen this 154 weight class make a lot of headlines. We know the Bud Crawford fight happened, and then last week we had the Virgil Ortiz fight go down. And so this 154 weight class is starting to look really interesting right now. Just overall, what's your thoughts so far in the past couple of weekends?
It's been really exciting, man. I know there's a lot of talent in 154.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the hardest division in boxing right now, and like I said, a lot of talent, a lot of fights to be made, and it's just exciting. For me to be at the 154-pound division because I know there's big fights to be made, and exciting as well, and that's what we're here for.
That's what I wanted to ask you because that mindset of a fighter now, you're waiting kind of obviously I'll ask you in a couple of minutes though about who could be next, something along those lines. But when you see a weight class, really just load up because I think just about a month ago, there's a lot of question marks, who's actually going to merge? How's Bud going to perform at this weight class? And now it's like you said, I mean, it's easily a very well statement to say that 154 is the toughest weight class in boxing right now. How exciting does that make you now knowing that, there are so many options you could fight that could be big time fights to make right now?
It's exciting, man. Because I feel like I'm just right there. I just need one fight, and it's gonna be my breakthrough moment. I just feel like I said, there's a lot of fights to be made, a lot of exciting fights, and with that, with having that type of competition, it just brings the best out of me, and I'm sure it brings the best out of everyone. All these top athletes, all these top fighters. So I mean, I think it's a win-win, for the fans as well. Everyone gets a great fight, and I mean, we get a lot of exposure as well as fighters, as boxers.
And so we're going to go through your career in a little bit here, but obviously you look at this group we just looked at, lots of guys, like you said, lots of great fights you could possibly make. And we know there's nothing on the table, at least publicly yet, in terms of schedules for yourself. Is there anybody that you're looking at discussions? And if so, who are some guys that we could possibly see you return to the ring and fight in the upcoming months or this year, maybe even early next year?
No, man. Unfortunately, there's nothing set yet. There's nothing official. There's nothing. We've been working on a couple stuff, but like I said, nothing official. Nothing that I can even throw a name out there. It's just
Sure.
nothing. But I mean, there's guys like Tim Zoo, Lubin. The rematch with Lubin would be awesome. Virgil Ortiz, even Boacek. He look. It was a good close fight.
Sure.
He's still in the mix. So those are all great names that are possible opponents and fights that I believe that they aren't hard to be made. Those are even Madrimov. Madrimov, Crawford, all those guys. Fundora. I know Fundora's waiting for Spence, but everyone
Mhm.
else is either going to be available or be available in, like you said, early 2025. So those are fights that can easily be made, and that's just exciting, man.
So what's a possible timeline for yourself? Like, is fighting one more time at least this year something that you want to do? That's something you're looking to pursue, or is it something that you're just kind of letting the cards kind of fall? And if it's something that has to happen early 2025, that's more okay in what you're targeting right now.
No, man, I'm hoping I can fight at least one more time this year.
Mm,
It's difficult. It's difficult.
yeah.
I think at this stage, it just gets harder to make fights. But I want another fight. I'm staying ready. I'm staying in the gym.
Hmm.
Yeah, I can't control that aspect of when I fight. Whose card I'm on. All those things. Those are things that I can't control. But I can control how ready I'm gonna be for when I get that call, and that's all I'm doing. Just doing my part right now.
All right, so you did mention one name, and I went back and watched the fight too, and that's the one time you did happen to take the loss. And I know that's obviously a very debated loss there, and I know you and one on Twitter said you're not going to make a lot of excuses, and you handled it really well. But I know every fighter that if you get a loss to somebody, you want to be able to revenge that in a sense. How big would that be for you? Is that something that you would like to do to be able to go back and get that rematch? Like, is that a priority to be able to kind of redeem that one loss you did have?
Yeah, most definitely. I feel like I mean, it's something that I wanted. Right, kind of right when it happened. Is that I wanted it really,
Hmm.
really bad. But Lubin, he didn't want to give me the rematch back in May and stuff like that. So we weren't gonna sit around waiting for him. We just made it happen. We fought Johan Gonzalez, and I mean, I'm still looking to fight. Whoever, but if the opportunity presented itself, that's something that, yeah, most definitely it would mean a lot to me, to be able to get it back and just kind of clean that slate.
So I would like to ask you about the mindset in those type of situations because that's a loss that a lot of people, if you go back and look at the Twitter and the critics, like that's a loss a lot of people say you probably shouldn't have even had that loss to begin with. And a lot of guys might take the approach to say make a lot of excuses about losing. They might go and just say it was rigged, whatever the case may be. But you took it a lot more gracious and humble, at least from the outward perspective. How do you deal with that personally though when it's a loss to begin with, but especially one that you feel you probably could have won if not you did win that fight? How do you deal with that as a fighter?
Look, man, that fight. I mean, I had never lost in my professional career. Obviously, that was my
Yeah.
first loss, so I never knew how to handle a loss. I just, you obviously as a fighter, you don't prepare for those type of things. I mean, you're a competitor. You
Hmm.
never prepare for to lose. And when it happened, yeah, I didn't want to make any excuses. I didn't say anything. I didn't want to blame nobody else. I wasn't raised that way. My
Mm.
parents, they never raised me like that. I've never been in an environment where making an excuse is okay. So I it was hard not to complain.
Mm.
I could have taken that route and just complain about the judging, about everything, but like you said, I took a different route and I took ownership, man. It was my fault.
Mm.
If it was my fault for leaving it up to the judges. It was my fault for not doing my job the whole way. So I just took ownership of the situation. I came back. It was hard. I'm not gonna lie and say it was easy. It was hard. It was hard
Yeah.
times. I had to kind of just reevaluate myself. Find myself. But once I did, man, I changed a lot of things. I changed my lifestyle, you know, um, my mindset. A lot
Mhm.
of things changed since that fight, and I took it as a blessing. It was a blessing in disguise because, like I said, I changed a lot of things in me, a lot of things in my life, and I'm not the same fighter I was last year. So I'm grateful for that.
So, what would you say would be the biggest changes? What was either the biggest or even some of the biggest thing that you'd say you altered in your life to help you become who you are now today?
Man, there's a lot of big changes. The circle around me, it just got tighter. I
Mm.
just don't let people in. I read a lot now. I like to read. I value my peace a lot more now. Just a
Mhm.
lot of different stuff. And I I mean, I think I showed it in my last fight. It was just a more complete performance,
Yeah.
and it was just because of my training camp. I felt a lot more at peace. I I enjoyed it again. And
Mm.
as an amateur, that was easy. It was easy to train every day. It was easy to go enjoy sparring. Then you start getting to this level of professionals, and things start to change, man. You start putting pressure on yourself that we don't need. You start just not focused as much as you should be, focusing on little things that, like I said, don't matter. And I just kind of went back to that, kind of went back to how it used to be, how I used to just train and enjoy it, and do the things that I used to love doing. And
Mm.
like I said, man, there's just a lot of changes that I've made.
No, that's a huge thing because I think, especially for athletes, but even more so on a sport where it's all on yourself. It's not like a team situation that you can rely on teammates or whatever. That it can become tough. That when you take that pro jump now, it's not just as a kid. You're fighting 3 rounds or whatnot, amateur. Like this is now pressure. You get that loss in the eyes of so many people. They judge you on your last fights. The way, for some reason, that's the way it's become such a big stigma, especially in America, I'd say. And that's not always easy because now it becomes a financial game. You're fighting for your life. You're fighting to be able to make financial gains. You're fighting with the pressure of everything does matter. You have a much larger spotlight on yourself. How have you learned to adapt to that now? And like you said, be able to find that peace, even in a world and industry where it's so chaotic at times and so easy to get distracted like that.
To be honest, reading,
Yeah.
controlling my mindset, man. Just making sure my mind is strong because, like you said, there is a lot of pressure. But it's just having a strong mindset and knowing that. I mean, yeah, I do it, but I love it, man. But it's a sport, you know. It's a sport, and at the end of the day, now I have nothing to lose. You know, I lost my undefeated record. Now I really have nothing to lose. So I'm going for it. You know, any fights that's there to be made, I'm going for it because there's nothing to protect. You know, I don't know how to protect my undefeated record, and it's just a different mindset, and it's just that pressure is out the way, you know,
Mm.
and any other pressures, I'm learning how to deal with, and I think it's a lot better now. I deal with stuff a lot better, and yeah, man, like I said, it was just a blessing in disguise.
That's an interesting perspective because I think, I don't want to make it sound like, losing is ever a good thing or what something you want to pursue to trying to lose. But especially like you said in this boxing industry where the O is such a big concept, do you think
Yeah.
that almost like you said, it can almost look like a blessing in disguise, but now it's like, you know what? Well, I've lost now. What is there to lose? Now it almost kind of frees you up in a certain sense where now you feel much more comfortable being able to take whatever fights on the table, the best fights, and truly just show how good you are as a fighter now instead of just protecting that O.
Yeah, man, definitely. There's obviously a certain amount of pressure in that, you know, being undefeated, protecting that. But now it doesn't matter, you know, like you said, I lost that undefeated record, so now I can like take those big jumps and all these big fights with no worries, you know, with no worries about my undefeated record, and even so, man, like back it was like I was too worried about like kind of like looking good and it was just a different pressure that I was putting on myself. But it's boxing, man. It's a fight. You know, I'm going in there to fight. So
Hmm.
I had to win by all means necessary, and that's something that I've been learning to do. No matter what I have to do, it doesn't have to be pretty. And like I said, there's been a lot of changes, and I it's just just changing the mindset, growing a lot, maturing a lot, and
Hmm.
little by little, man, I feel like I'm gonna be a complete fighter.
So I do want to go through your childhood because overall now, and I know some people already look at your resume and how many wins you've already fought and the big time fights you've been a part of. And when they find your age, they're probably a lot pretty shocked because you're still under 25. Like you're still one of the up and coming young guys. And you're now at a stage where, we're talking about you being one of the top contenders and whatnot. And that's usually not something that people your age is a part of yet. And so I kind of want people to get to know your story a little bit because you obviously haven't been in this game for that many years comparative to some other guys that you're going to be competing
Yeah.
against. And so I want people to know your story though a little bit in your childhood. So I want to go back and I did a little bit of research and I brought this out of your PVC bio page. And there was this quote you talked about before that when you were at the age of 4 years old, you got bored boxing a little bit, but then eventually came back and you started training. And your dad gave you an entire year to determine whether or not you really wanted it. And at about 8 or 9 years old is when you officially started boxing then. So can you take us through that? Because I don't think there's a lot of people that at 4 years old, they're already pursuing the sport they're going to, or the job they're going to be pursuing for the remainder of their life. How did boxing all come into plans for yourself then?
It's funny, man, because my father and my uncle, they used to train in our garage,
Hmm.
and so it was just a matter of me walking out there and training, you know, and they would obviously like go run and do all these type of things, and I would be there with them, you know, running. If they were sprinting, I'd sprint. I was sparring, all of that, and I was always sparring older kids, and I was doing good, you know, as a little kid, and it got to a point where I mean I was going to my uncle's fights, the amateur fights, and they're fighting and competing and getting ready for a moment, and I want to fight and I want to compete, and I can't because I'm four, you know, I have to be 8 years old. So I'm like, nah, you know what? I got bored of it. You know, I got tired of it. I got tired of training. And it wasn't even like I was obviously not training hard. You know, it wasn't like I was killing myself training, but I was, you know, there mostly every day
Hmm.
and making it kind of a priority. My dad was pushing me, and I was like, you know, it's not worth it. I'm not fighting. So I told him, you know, my dad, you know what? I'm just gonna stop training. I can't fight, and yeah, I stopped training a couple years, and I'd obviously go back and forth. Sometimes I'd go to the gym, sometimes I wouldn't. You know, by this time my dad he got a gym, he opened up a spot, and so that was exciting. You know, so I would go. and but I wasn't consistent with it. You know, it was just go some days and some days not and stuff like that. And then when I told him, you know what, Dad, I want to do this. Like I
Hmm.
kept watching fights. I mean, I was always a fan, man, and I would always I remember I would always lock myself in the room, and I would put on music like my walkout music, and I'd
Hmm.
walk in the ring, and I'd visualize everything, man. I'd visualize a big fight, you know, and even when the big fights were on, we'd always buy the pay-per-views. I'd be shadow boxing, like just the love for the sport was always there, you know. And but I was just a little kid, and my dad, he never wanted to force anything on me. He didn't like that. So when I told him, you know, I want to do this, he was like, well, he thought I was playing, you know, because like I said, it was on and off. I was inconsistent with it, and he was like, well, you know what? If you want to do it, you have to show me, you know, that you really want to do it, and I need a year for me to start letting you compete. And because I wanted to, you know, I wanted to start training and get my license, my book to fight amateur. I wanted everything right off the rip. You know,
Hmm.
I you know, the first day I was there, I wanted him to sign me up, and he said, "No, that's not how things work. You know, like you got to show me, you got to prove to me that you really want it, and I need you here every day, working hard." And I said, "Okay." And yeah, man, that whole year, I remember I worked hard, and I gave him that year. He signed me up for USA Boxing.
So I want to make sure we clarify this a little bit because this is a discussion you probably hear with a lot of people, you know, maybe when they're 14, 15, 16 or whatnot. I mean, we look around, and at least I'm in Arizona too. So, you know, at least I can see a lot of people locally that are 4 years old or under 10. And to say the least, they're probably not working out, let alone even have any idea what they're doing anymore. And so I think it also has to have a little bit of testament to your parents, your dad, and the kind of the role model he is for you. So give us a little bit of insight into that because just him not, I mean, like you said, well, it was more he allowed you to decide what you want to do, but he still was there to push you and kind of gave you the mindset of trying to be great from a young age to obviously be working at that much at only 4 years old. So just kind of walk us through his impact on your life then.
You know what, man? He's been a great role model for me. He's always, you know, been a hard worker.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there was times, man, where even in amateur events where I had a fight, he was working, and I'd go weigh in. My uncles would take me to go weigh in, or I'd catch a ride with someone from the gym weigh in, and he would show up, you know, after work to go work my corner or whatever. But you know, he's been a great role model, and he's always like it's crazy because yeah, I was so young, and I'm still so young,
Mm-hmm.
but my it was I mean I was my dad's first born, you know, first child, and he was you know, very excited, you know, with his first kid, and he would, man, he would buy me like motorcycles and all, and I'm only 2 3 years old, you know. I think I was one, like I had just turned one when he
Mm-hmm.
got me like a little motorcycle, a little like a little one that it's obviously battery, but like for big kids, you know, where they
Yeah.
press the button and it just goes. I guess, well, I didn't even know how to like go on it. You know, I didn't know how to press it. I didn't know how to do nothing. And he tied a rubber band to my thumb around the
Mm-hmm.
button. So I was pressing it, and I was just going and driving by myself. I fell asleep, man, riding that, and they had to chase me down because, you know, I had my thumb pressing, and I was going. They had to chase me down. So little things like that, you know, I was always like just more mature for my age, just doing things that, you know, I feel like other kids, maybe this generation wouldn't do. You know, he was,
Mm-hmm.
you know, at 6, he bought me my quad, my first quad, you know, and it was big. And I was always outside playing, man, and I was with them and kind of just learning, and always hanging out with the bigger kids. You know, my uncle Abel, you know, he was also into riding, you know, motorcycles as well. He was 15, 16, and we would ride it, and I was flipping, you know, flipping myself in the motorcycle. I don't know how to ride it, you know. I'm just a kid, so I'm going through all these adventures and just maturing, man, and learning different things. So I think that played a big impact because I'm more mature for my age, and it was, you know, thanks to my dad, you know, the way I was brought up, and it was just, I don't know, it was it wasn't like he was hard on me, but it was like like I always felt like I needed to, kind of make sure that me and him were good. I don't know how to explain to you, but
Sure.
I always had that like I gotta make my dad proud. I gotta make sure my dad is proud of me, and so I was always trying to be be better,
Mm.
and obviously as a little kid you have days where and even now you have days where you don't just don't feel like training, and but I mean as a little kid you don't get to have that. You're just a little kid. You're supposed to be ready every day.
Mm-hmm.
And when I had those days, it was like, man, I gotta be better. I gotta push myself. And yeah, man, I mean, I was 10, 11, getting up at 5 a.m. before in sixth grade, fifth grade, before going into school. I would go run. Like I said, 5 at 5 a.m. getting up to go run, and it was just different. I had a different childhood, but I wouldn't trade it for anything in this world. It's made me what I am and who I am, and yeah, man, all those core principles, all those values that I have now, are thanks to that childhood.
So you said that when you officially decide, boxing what you want to do, and you can start doing the amateur ranks. At that point in time, did you know this is what you were going to do for your entire career? Like, this is what you want to pursue. You want to be great at boxing at that point in time, or did that more develop over and through your amateur career?
I always wanted this. I
Mm-hmm.
always and obviously as a little kid you don't, and more so here in Casa Grande you don't like. There's no like there wasn't any role models like.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just had my uncle Abel. It wasn't like I want to be like him who made it out of Casa Grande. I want to be like him who made it out of this town. There wasn't anything like that. And so it was really hard to kind of have that vision.
Mm-hmm.
But I would always think like, there's got to be a way. I have to be a world champion, and it was kind of like I want to be a world champion, but I never knew the steps to get there.
Sure.
Like I just in my mind I want to be a world champion, and that's all I
Mm-hmm.
would tell myself. I want to be a world champion, and I want to keep trying. And I was never talented. I don't feel like I don't feel like I'm talented because in the amateur ranks, I wasn't really good coming up. I had to learn a lot. I had to take some losses as an amateur. I had to, like I said, learn a lot. So I don't consider myself talented, but I always worked hard. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I I would lose Saturday and I was back in the gym on Monday, um, and working my butt off, man, and getting yelled at by my dad or he's telling me you did this wrong. Getting constructive criticism, but I was there working.
Mm-hmm.
And there was times where I was frustrated, man. I would lose 3, 4 times back to back, and it was like, what's going on, man? It might not that good, but I was there,
Mm-hmm.
man, every day. And I would remember, I got almost like 12, 13 when I discovered motivational speakers, like Eric Thomas and all of
Yeah.
them, Les Brown, and I would love watching those videos, man. And I would run listening to those videos, and I would always keep pushing, man. Like, and I would always think to myself, like, I know I'm not like talented. There was kids in our gym that I felt like had more talent than me, but I was always working hard and just doing that extra mile, going that extra mile, doing that extra round, and just visualizing everything. Always, man. I would always go to bed, just kind of thinking like I'm gonna be a world champion, and like I said, always just thinking about that moment of becoming a world champion. And as
Mm-hmm.
I grew older, I was able to fit in the moments in between that. Like there
Mm-hmm.
was always being a world champion, but there was never moments in between that. Like there was never like the journey. I never knew
Sure.
the journey. I never knew nothing. But as I got older, I started putting bits and pieces. Like okay, I got to do this. This has to happen. I have to go through this, and I have to go through that. And now that I'm here, I'm constantly reminding myself like this is what you dreamed of when you were eight,
Mm-hmm.
9 years old, man. This is what you were dreaming of when you were running, listening to Eric Thomas. This is what you've been knowing and been wanting, and now you're here.
I wanted to ask you this. I actually wrote down another quote you said from another interview in 2020 that kind of goes along with what you're talking about. You weren't always per se the most talented, but it was more your hard work aspect. And you said something. This quote was, "If people tell you that you're not that you're good, don't believe them." Walk us through that a little bit, because that's also an aspect that a lot of people typically would say, I want to be praised, I want to be this, that, and the third, and so you obviously take a different approach to that. You say, okay, cool, thank you, move on. Walk us through that mindset though a little bit.
Yeah, man. I feel like at that time I was the guy who told me I was 17 and I was 16
Mm-hmm.
right before I turned pro, and I was doing really good in with sparring professional fighters. I was looking really really good, really sharp. I was really like just focused because I wanted to turn pro. I knew I just had to demonstrate. I was kind of done with the amateurs. I wanted more. I wanted something different. I felt like my style was more suited for the professional game.
Mm-hmm.
So, man, I was working hard, and I remember like we had a lot of fighters from Phoenix, the Phoenix area, coming to our gym, and I was looking really good, like I said, and that guy, he told me like, man, and everybody would tell me like, man, you're good, you're gonna be a world champion, and it's crazy, you're so young and you're gonna be a world champion and this and that, and he came up to me and he told me, he was like, you know what, you are gonna be good and you are gonna be a world champion, but when people tell you, don't believe them. And it stuck with me. And at the time I was like, I've always like I always take every advice I can get, and I choose if it's good or bad, but I always take every advice, and like I kept repeating it in my head, and I was like, what? Why would he say that? And what would he mean? Why? What did he mean with that?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, man, it just the more that I turned pro, I kept growing and kept going, and people, you're gonna be a world champion. You're good. You're gonna be real good. And as a human being, you start getting comfortable. You start,
Yep.
I'm good, I got it like that. But you don't, like I told you, I'm not talented. I don't have it like that. I'm here because of my hard work. So I have to continue to work hard and I have to continue to get up every day because I'm not talented, and I just I don't get comfortable now. I can't be comfortable. I have to continue to work hard.
All right, so I have to also ask you that when you do take that pro jump, then you are in a position where I know a lot of guys typically will go and fight a lot early on in their careers, but I haven't seen too many guys fight as much as you did, because just to put the stats out there to be specific, you fought 10 fights in under 12 months to start you off your career. You had 2 fights within that time line that was within 21 days of each other. And all these fights in comparison here also only went for a total of 18 rounds. So in essential, I mean, you didn't fight too many rounds overall, because you obviously got rid of guys pretty quickly there, but you got to walk us through that a little bit, because you didn't just start and become pro. You jumped right in there and went full steam ahead with 10 fights out right at the gate. You got to walk us through, like, what was that first chaotic year like for yourself?
Man, that was one of the greatest years of my life, man. I love those moments because there was nothing, man. I mean, like we had no promoter. We had a manager who was helping us, and I'm always grateful for that. But there was nothing like promising.
Mm,
Like nobody promised me that I was gonna be signing PBC, Top Rank. Or there was nobody, like yeah, you know what? If you look good, you got someone watching you from PBC, from Top Rank. Nothing like that. There was no hopes of that. It was just a dream. There was just that. That was it. Just a dream of fighting. And I wasn't fighting on a big stage, man. It was in Mexico, down in Tijuana, Agua Prieta. It wasn't the biggest stage, but it was my dream, man. I remember from my pro fight when they told me I was gonna be professional debut. I was still in high school. I was getting up before school, running. I would meal prep. I would take my meals to school, eat healthy. It was I was just excited about it. Like I can't explain to you. It was just some like an excitement. Like this is huge.
mm-hmm.
And it wasn't. It was just at a gym down in Agua Prieta. It was just a local club show. But for me, it was a big moment, and I prepared myself that way. And I went and fought. and I was in the gym Monday. And then I got another fight, and same thing. I prepared myself and on the gym Monday, and it kept showing because I kept knocking these guys out. And yeah, they were lower level opposition, but at that time I was taking the hardest fights that they were offering me. Like they would offer me three guys, and I was taking the hardest one every time out. And because I wanted that, I wanted that challenge. And I fought some tough fighters down there, man. And I'm just grateful for that experience because, like I said, there was nothing was guaranteed, man. Like and now that I think about it, now that I have all this experience, I think about it like I never once sat down and thought to myself like, what's the plan here? Am I gonna do this for the next 5 years, for the next 2 years? Am I gonna get signed? Like what's gonna happen? I never thought that far. I was just living my dream, man. I was just grateful to be in that ring as a professional, yeah, in front of a little crowd, but I didn't have a headgear on, man, and I was fighting in 8-ounce gloves, and I was weighing in the day before, and I had 24 hours to hydrate, and little things that growing up, I would just think like, dang, one day I'm gonna do that, and I was doing all
Mhm.
of these things, and like I said, I was just living the dream, man. I wasn't thinking more, ahead. It was just that in that moment.
When you look back at that then and you kind of realize, it wasn't this big old production show. You've been on some big cards now in your career, but starting off in you could say a more humble aspect in terms of just not always having this massive, large scale production, fighting the Barclays Center, fighting in Las Vegas. How much did that kind of help motivate you? Just kind of saying, you know what? I came from this place. I wasn't obviously fighting these big stages, and now look at where I made it to, where I'm fighting in some of the greatest, most well known stadiums and rings in the entire world.
Yeah, that's it's huge. And it makes me kind of be a little more grateful and value those things a lot more. Those moments
Yeah.
because yeah, like I told you, man. I mean, now that I'm a little more experienced and I look back and see that there was nothing guaranteed, I thank myself for for just pushing myself that much more.
Mm.
Because maybe if I would have sat down and thought, there's nobody here from PBC watching, there's nobody here from this big companies watching me. Why am I gonna go all out? Or why am I gonna give it my all? Maybe I wouldn't be here where I'm at right now. So I just thank myself for just always being dedicated and working hard and just always giving my all. Like I said, it never mattered where I was. I could have been down in Mexico, and I could have been at the T-Mobile Arena. I always give it my all
Mm.
because the type of person I am, the type of athlete I am, and the respect that I have for boxing itself.
So when would you say it did start to kind of change for yourself? Because you were saying that you didn't really have a plan or just go out there, fight, give it your all. When did things kind of start changing for yourself and it became more of the business aspect that it is today for yourself now?
I feel like, I mean, essentially, it was when I turned 18, and it was okay. Like now, I can fight in the United States. Like
Hmm.
who am I gonna fight under? Like. But I was lucky, man, because as soon as I turned 18, we started talking to Louis de Cuba Jr. and he was excited to work with us. He said we're gonna give you an opportunity to showcase your skills, and even then, I feel like it was just about just showcasing my talent. I would honestly say up until recently, you really start paying attention to like kind of like the business aspect and.
Sure.
Kind of like now that you're in this big event, and especially like being under the Canelo undercard, you start learning how he kind of carries himself, how he runs the show, man. Whatever he says goes, and that's the type that's the type of power as a boxer that you kind of want. That's
Sure.
the goal. Could be like Canelo. Mayweather used to do the same thing, and that's what essentially you want to be there. Because I mean, I feel like nobody's in this sport just to be an average fighter, just to be average, and we're all trying to be great. So just being around all of that, man, it makes you think, and it makes you like want to be where Canelo's at and want to work as hard and you know it, get there. That's the goal, just to get there.
So you mentioned that you always want to put your best foot forward. You always want to fight no matter where it was, what it was. And there's another quote I actually found in another interview you talked about that I thought was really interesting because it's polar opposite of what the mindset is of a lot of guys in any sport today, or even people not in sports. And you said this: "I want to earn my reputation. I'm not here to have Instagram followers. I'm here to make a statement in boxing." Like I said, that's not something that a lot of people. I mean, you could say athletes, you could say just people in general. Now it's about Instagram followers. It's about how famous can I be. You obviously completely went the opposite side of that. You said, I'm just here to do me, work my reputation, make a statement in boxing. Why is that the mindset you have in this world, especially in the sports of self-promotion, essentially, for yourself that you're in today?
I mean, I just like I told you, I the kind of the way I was brought up, just um always doing other activities, and even now, man, it's kind of hard to keep up with my social media. I try my best, but it's just hard, and yeah, I know it's a responsibility. It's something that I have to do. It's kind of like what's trending now and what as an athlete you should do.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard, man. Like I said, for me, especially in training camp, it's just like I mean, the perfect day for me would be wake up, eat, go do what I have to do, either train, run, come back, rest, go back, work out for boxing, come back, and recover, man. Just rest and do the process all over again.
Yep.
But then you add like I have to do, I gotta get an Instagram post. I gotta have my photographer out here, uh get a video in, little things, to keep my fans kind of engaged. All that is, I think that's hard. That's
Yep.
tough because as an athlete, you kind of just want to focus. You got so much pressure on doing this and doing that, and it's just a lot of things you got to juggle, man. But that's the new that's the new world we live in, and I gotta kind of adapt to that. And at, at the end of the day, yeah, you juggle a lot of things, but that's kind of like the vision, greatness. And
Mm-hmm.
you want to be great, you got to juggle whatever comes your way.
So I know that that's obviously something that's like completely different mindset to begin with too, because I said a lot of people, that's just who they are. They just love social media and all those aspects. And I think especially in America, there's a lot of options we could list. I won't list too many names that obviously are on Twitter and stuff a lot, and they make a lot of statements consistently. To have that mindset where you know that even though you have to go do it, you're not going to let it kind of take over your life. Where it's going to be something that you're on Twitter 24/7. I mean, I think you haven't even tweeted something in a few months and all that. So I mean, it's something where you kind of just look at and say, I'm going to make sure that my priorities are set where I'm the best boxer I can possibly be. And I'm going to make sure to do other things, but I'm going to prioritize my skill, my game, who I am. How have you made sure to have the priorities right in your life?
Honestly, I think it's more of just because I love the sport, how much I love for the sport I have, and I always stay dedicated, and continue to learn. I mean, it just if you're a full time athlete, you understand how it just consumes your whole day, man. There is no like sitting down and tweeting and doing all of this and going back and forth. It's hard to do that, at least
Mm-hmm.
for me.
Sure.
And another thing, another point that why I don't like doing it, man, it just adds so much pressure, and we've seen it,
Mm.
with fighters, and I won't say names either, but we see it where they go back and forth with other people saying, "I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that" on Twitter, and I'm gonna show you guys this, and then they go and fight and they don't show it, and they got screenshots of you saying, you know what I mean? So
Yep.
you're adding all this pressure to yourself that's unnecessary when your only job, man, is to train, prepare yourself, and go perform. That's the
Yep.
only job you have, and you don't have to sit there and argue with every fan, every critic. They're on Twitter for a reason, and you're at the gym for a reason, and you're gonna be in the T-Mobile Arena for a reason in a couple of weeks. And that's
Mm-hmm.
where you kind of just but you gotta balance stuff out, man.
So I want to also go into your boxing game a little bit because there was a point where in 2020 you talked about, you had this great KO power. That's something that you kind of based your fight around, and then you wanted to work on your defense as more so your goal. And I think we've seen that a lot more. You've overall become a much all complete, all around fighter. What's next for yourself? Is there? I know obviously you always want to improve. Nobody's ever perfect. So What do you say now at this point in time in 2024, where you're at in your career? What are the things that you really are looking to emphasize and improve on as you continue to move forward in your career?
I wanna I want to take all that and put it together, man. I want it to come together. I want to have that same power that I had back then, knocking people out. That same aggression. I want to say power. I think the power's still there. It's just more being that aggressive while having my defense skills, while being defensively sound, and being able to just implement all that together, man. And there's obviously different things I want to work on, um, and lately I've been working a lot on my jab, getting my speed up, and all of these things, man. I keep watching my last fight, see how I can grow from that,
Mm-hmm.
and just I just want to be better fight by fight, and like we talked about earlier, in today's era, you're only as good as your last performance. So I want to keep getting better, keep growing, keep maturing. Like I'm only 23, and I'm only gonna get better from here. I'm only gonna get more experience. I'm only gonna get more man strength, and I'm just gonna develop into a better boxer, I believe.
So that is one of the final things I do want to touch up on you, because I alluded to it a little bit ago when I talked about your age, and that's crazy because we looked at that whole 154 group. We got a lot of guys post 30 years old in that group. We got a lot of guys, and that's typically for a large portion of weight classes. It's a grown man sport. You're going to see a lot of guys older is when you're kind of in your prime or whatnot. But you're right here in the mix of it. We're talking about yourself as you're ranked number 3 in the WBC, number 8 WBA, number 6 IBF, number 12 WBO. You're right here heavily in the mix, and you're only 23 years old. Like, there is a long time for you to go in terms of being able to win world championships at this weight class, maybe even another weight class, whatever it might look like. So what do you have in store for your future then? Like, how are you kind of balancing this? You just want to kind of stay at 154 for the foreseeable future? Is this something possibly moving up as you get older and potentially gain weight the right way? Like, what do we have in store for you while you're still such a young age?
I do have a lot of goals, man, and I want to become a world champion here at 154. I do believe I can grow into the 160 and 168 pound
Okay.
division, and I want to get titles there as well. I feel like those three weight classes are the ones that are in my plans right now that I believe I can conquer and I want to conquer, and that's kind of my goal. And I want to do all of this before I retire, and I don't want to retire. I don't want to retire, too late. I want to kind of get all of this done now because I'm young. I feel like I can get it all right now. I mean, I'm young, I'm growing, I'm dedicated, and I think I got the right people around me. I got
Mm.
family. Um, I don't think I'm making too much mistakes. I'm not hanging around the bad crowd, and so I'm staying dedicated. I'm staying in the gym and learning, improving, so that I can compete with all these guys who possibly have more experience. I mean,
Sure.
they've even lived longer than me. Even just that. You gain more experience with the years, man.
Mm-hmm.
So I just feel like as long as I stay dedicated and continue to work hard, man, I can continue to compete with these top guys at 154 and can continue my journey here until I become a world champion. And I'm ready to move up, like you said, in a healthy way and up to 160 and 168 possibly as well. And
So
I mean, that's the goal.
So you're obviously at 154 right now. Would you say this is the comfortable weight, like for where you're at right now in terms of age or body? Like, is 154 kind of exactly perfect for yourself right now, or do you think you could even potentially go fight at 160? Like, if that was had to be the case for yourself, do you think 160 would be an okay weight class for you at this point in time?
No, I'm still good at 154. I'm still
Hmm.
making it comfortably, and I feel like I can continue to do that for a couple more years. I believe maybe a year, 2 years.
Okay.
Uh, and I mean, but who knows? That's what I felt at 147, man. But yeah, well, I outgrew 147 pretty fast. I was 19. I was growing, and
Yeah.
each training camp, I was just growing more and more. So it was kind of hard to keep it down at 150, at 147. So right now, I mean, I feel good at 154, and I'm gonna continue to fight 154 until my body allows it.
All right, so I do want to ask you this question because you've had a lot of big fights throughout your career so far. You know, a lot of people could say this might be your favorite, this might be your favorite. But I just want to ask you from the person's experience all these fights firsthand, what would you say was your favorite career win, and what would you say also was your best, most notable performance so far in your career?
Oh man, that's a tough question, man. I think I, I think the fight that I've enjoyed the most, that's one of my favorites. I think it's the one with Vladimir Hernandez, and I think it
Hmm.
was just because he kept coming, man. He would not stop. He kept coming. He kept pushing, and I think it was just an exciting fight for the fans and for myself. You know, it was a great challenge. I was he was coming off a win over J Rock, and it was kind of a big stepping stone for me, and I was just very excited for that fight. I remember I kept visualizing how I was gonna fight him and how what I was gonna do to kind of throw him off, and everything would just work that night. So that was one of my favorite fights,
Hmm.
as well as the Joey Spencer fight. Man, that see those two are kind of hard to those two are my favorite because in the Joey Spencer fight. I felt like I was kind of on a different level. And when
Hmm.
that fight got made, people had it 50-50. A lot of people thought it was going to be a great fight. And me personally, I just felt like it wasn't, it wasn't a 50-50 fight. I felt like I had beat more notable opponents than him, and I was at a different stage of my career. But I was excited to be able to prove that on a good card. So like that was another night where everything just kind of came together and everything. It was just a perfect night. It was a perfect training camp. It was a perfect night, and those are hard to get, man. As I continue to grow and I continue to get further in my career, you start to see how those performances and those nights are hard to get, man. Where you're just everything's working and everything's 100%. There's a lot of things that go into being ready for that one moment.
Yep.
And in terms of the biggest, I feel like Brian Mendoza was one of the bigger names that I beat because of what he came back to do. He came back and
Hmm.
beat Fundora and Rosario, so those are big wins, and he gave Tim Tszyu a great fight as well.
Yep.
So I feel like that's one of the biggest names that I've beat because, like I said, of what he came back and did. But I mean, but Vladimir, he's on a good winning streak too, man.
Yep.
He's doing real good. So I mean, I fought some good guys, man.
Absolutely, man. Well, I got two more questions for you then. I know we kind of, in a sense, addressed some of this in the beginning portions of this interview, but I do want to look at the timeline a little bit more for yourself because you said obviously you want to fight before the end of the year. And like I said, obviously WBC, you're number 3 at currently. So, I mean, you're pretty high up there in terms of the contender for that. Is fighting for a belt, is that something you see in the future? Like, is that something you've had a discussion about potentially getting a potential title fight, either this year or next year? Or when can we possibly see you fight for a chance to go get a belt?
Hopefully next year, man. That's
Hmm.
I was hoping this year. I wanted it this year. Going into this year, that's all I had in my mind. I need to become a world champion this year. But things have been kind of stagnant, in terms of fighting and all of that. It's been kind of hard to get in a card, but like I said, I'm gonna continue to do my part so that I'm ready, and I feel like I'm just one fight away from that breakthrough moment where
Hmm.
people are gonna realize that I am a big player in the 154 division, and it's just like I said, I just need one fight, and I'm gonna prove it, and that's why I'm staying ready, and that's why I'm perfecting my craft, each day I'm just 1% better. That's all I'm focusing on, just being 1% better.
Absolutely, man. Well, I actually want to start off the interview with this portion. I actually got into another thing, and that's obviously your nickname. It's El Mono, which in English that would be the monkey. I want to ask you a little bit about that. Then, how did that nickname come to be? Why is that what you go by?
El mono, it does mean monkey, but it's also like referred to as like cute,
Hmm.
like yeah, like kind of like cute. And it was my dad gave it to me because I was a baby, and he was always like dressing me up as a grown man. You know, he'd put the glasses on me, sunglasses, the hat, and I would always leave him. You know, and he was like, mono, el mono, because it was always just I was just grown. You know, just leaving my sunglasses, not messing with it, my hat, and it was just for cute. So it was a family nickname, man, and it was something that just they stuck with me. You know, as here in town, as we opened up boxing gyms, and my classmates were coming into the gym, hearing the nickname. It was then brought from the gym to school, and then the school now. I mean, there's people that don't even know my name, and they just call me Mono. You know, so it's crazy.
Absolutely, man. Well, my final question I like asking everybody to wrap up each interview with is when you do decide to put away the gloves and you decide to step away from the ring, as you said, that's something that you want to get done somewhat quickly overall. But when that day does come, what is it that you want your legacy to be? What do you want to be remembered for what you accomplished inside and outside of the ring?
I want to be remembered for being one of the greatest of all time, man. I kind of want my name when you speak about boxing, my name comes up, kind of like the Manny Pacquiao, the Julio Cesar Chavez, Floyd Mayweather,
Mm.
Mike Tyson, even, and Canelo. Now, that's the legacy that I want to leave. You know, I want to. You know, it's been years of dedication, of hard work and discipline to to not get there. You know, so I want to make it worth my while, and I want to make sure that I get to that stage where, like I said, being one of the greatest of all times, and just being remembered for putting forth some of the great fights. You know, I want to be involved in some of the great fights in boxing. I want to go down in history for fights like Morales versus Barrera fight, Pacquiao Marquez, those type of fights that us as boxing fans remember through the years. I want to be part of those fights. You know, those memorable fights, and like I said, leave a legacy that will live on.
Absolutely, man. Well, Jesus, I appreciate taking time to come on today, and I'm excited to see what God's got next for you and whatever that's
Thank
going to look like, man.
Thank you, man. I appreciate your time as well, man. I appreciate it.
Of course, man. You're always welcome on. You anytime you want to come on, just let me know, and you're always welcome.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
All right, so talk to you later, man. God bless.
All right, man. Thank you. Likewise.
I appreciate everybody for tuning in today to this interview. It'll be available separately tomorrow. Release it so that anybody can access whenever they'd like. You guys also will be able to go fast forward or rewind, I should say, to go check out the interview while this live is still going on. It'll be up too before I get the official full interview out. So this interview will be available, like I said, in both those different versions. But I appreciate everybody for tuning in. I'll go on a little break and we'll get into some of the other segments that I've talked about in the beginning of this show. I'll talk to you guys in a little bit. God bless. From the moment I was born, a ball was in my hands and a deep passion for sports was ignited. My dream was to play the game for as long as possible, but God had other plans. After battling with severe illnesses caused by black mold poisoning for nearly 4 years, I made the difficult decision to let go of my on-court dreams heading into my junior year of high school. However, I was determined to have one last victorious moment as an athlete, and that was achieved on February 9th, 2019, when I ran a marathon at the age of 16. That night, as I took a recovery Epsom salt bath, I felt God place on my heart the idea to start a podcast. Although I didn't know where to begin, the first episode of SchuZ Views dropped on March 11th, 2019. Over the next 1,183 days, more than 600,000 people tuned into 1,056 interviews. Then, on June 6, 2022, my final interview for over a year was released featuring Jameer Young. I never once thought that I'd be off the air for over a year. But the truth is, there was something missing in me. At first, I thought creating a website would help fill that void, so I went and put together SchuZ.net, but nothing changed. Throughout the next month, I continued searching for answers, and eventually, God worked in the only way that would have gotten my attention at that point in time. Through something work-related. By the end of July 2022, my parents blessed me with the opportunity to build a studio. However, before breaking ground, the real change began. On August 3rd, 2022, my life changed forever. Once again, I happened to be taking a bath late into the night, and suddenly, an indescribable feeling came upon me. It was a profound urge to open up my Bible and read. I turned to 2 Corinthians chapter 4, and since that night, not a single day has passed without me spending time in the Word. You see, what was missing all along was Jesus. On August 6th, my dad and I began to lay the foundation for the next chapter of my career. Simultaneously, the foundation of who I was created to be was also being laid. Over the years, I had lost sight of my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I knew of God, but I didn't know Him, and I certainly was not following or living like Him. But day by day, the new me began to take shape. My former self's sole priority faded away, and I began to live out the acronym I often talked about, FJTFOE. It stands for First Jesus, then Family Over Everything. God became my everything, and He transformed me entirely. He helped me rediscover my love for family, running, lifting, playing basketball, giving back, the church, and most importantly, Him. This journey began with a craving to nourish my old identity, but God's hand was always in control, rapidly shaping my new identity. As God transformed me, He also grew my relationship with every member of my family. Together they stood by me and contributed to the person I am today. Through it all, Ephesians chapter 3 verse 20 manifested its truth in my life. The blessings I received far exceeded anything I could have imagined. The truth is that God's hand has always been there, but now I'm committed to following His path. Although I may look different, and my heart has undergone a profound change, I am truly blessed to announce the beginning of a new chapter. Starting July 24th, I will be launching my new show, the SchuZ Show, which will air on my YouTube channel every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time. I can't wait for you guys to join me in this next chapter. I'll see you guys soon, and may God bless you all. There is a funny aspect about you, and that's the fact that I don't think you necessarily even tried to, but there's been countless times in your brief NBA career already that you've made it viral. You've made memes of yourself, whatever it might be. One of which was in the midst of that 40-point streak. You obviously broke LeBron's record, and you made your comment saying about, well, I'm not really a LeBron guy, I'm a Kobe guy. And I don't think you even intended that to go viral. Now you have that.
Nah, not at all.
There's your Steve Nash moment during the Summer League. We know that aspect. I think that was after the second year. You had a fine, obviously, at one point. You have your branding that you've now done. When you look at all these, like, do you ever intend to expect something to go viral or be funny, or does you just end up happening, and then by the time you get back on your phone, you're like, oh, this already just went down, dang.
Bro, that's crazy. No, not at all. No, because even with my brand, like when a random person asks me, because you know, random people always see like, oh, he's so serious, and I'm just like, bro. And then I say it all the time. Like I say it no matter what. And I said it at one time and it blew up. I was like, I mean, I said it, I've been saying it every time. Like somebody asked me that. So then you know, that blew up. And then the Kobe thing, I was just being honest. I mean, it's no disrespect to LeBron. Obviously, I love looking at LeBron playing stuff like that. You know, he's done a lot for the game and stuff. But it's just me being a fan of basketball, me growing up with Kobe, just, you know, my love for Kobe is like unmatched. So, you know, really that part. So really everything I say, I'm just like, I mean, I'm not really intending to go viral. I'm just speaking what's on my mind at that point. So, you know, if it goes viral, it goes viral.
Which one of the things that's happened so far, maybe even one that I've not listed yet, was the most surprising to you? Like by the time you got on your phone, maybe even someone else came and told you about it, where you're like, dang, that really went viral?
The branding. My brand, honestly. I was never expecting that to go viral. Because I always said it. I always said the same thing. No matter what somebody asked me, I always said it. And that went viral before. And then that one particular day, I woke up, and then the very next day or a few hours later, I don't really remember, because we was playing Philly when I said it. We was playing Philly, and then when I said it, it took off, and I was like, oh man, I was not expecting that at all.
were to have the ball in your hands the whole game, you're the guy for a whole season.
Staying consistent, I move with the clock. I'm in the zone, I'm not casting a stone. I'm finna stand on a rock. Firm foundation, I got that dog in me, like 101 Dalmatian. I got girl with me, so I knew that I'm still finna make it. I'm still finna take it. I hopped in the ring and I'm still going crazy. I cut off this sin like I just got a taper. I walk in the storm and then God gave me favor. I'm still going forward. I just had the luck in the Lord. I knew that I'm finna make it. Doing my old self, he got deported. Shout out to the king and I'm finna take it.
Welcome back, everyone, to the SchuZ Show. I am your host, Zach Shoemaker, as a lot of people know me as SchuZ. And this is the segment I'm going to get into now. It's Eternal Echoes from Genesis to Revelation, the mission to echo his eternal power. I alluded to in the beginning of the show the verse of the day, and I said that we're going to get into this topic later on. I also said that what the verse of the day is Psalm chapter 16, verse 8. I keep my eyes always on the Lord. With him at my right hand, I will not be shaken. And I said that it's going to be going down across the ticker on the bottom of the screen, which it obviously is. And I wanted you guys to kind of think about that, meditate on that. Throughout the first hour of the show, I go through the interview process. So now it's obviously time for me to break down that verse. And that's just actually one of the many verses I'm going to share with you guys today. I just chose this one. It happened to work, and I felt like this was a good summarization of what I'm going to talk about today. The past few shows I've had a little bit different, deeper discussions, and you could say theological and psychological concepts to address and discuss. But on this one, it's going to be a little bit more straightforward, and it's going to be a little bit more just truth, and it's going to be a lot more of just scriptural basis, 110% that. And so what I'm going to talk about today is something that I think we could all utilize. And if we can't utilize it today, it's something that we certainly can utilize at some point in our lives, or if not, for some reason, if you do not deal with struggles again in your life, then at least you could look back and probably recognize some form of struggles in your life. So that being said, let's get into today's Eternal Echoes from Genesis to Revelation, the mission to echo his eternal power. Well, folks, the truth here is that we're all going to have struggles. We're all going to go through times in life where life's not going to go quite as planned. We're going to have to persevere through certain things. We're going to have issues that we're going to have to address and handle. And why do I know that certain? Well, first of all, we could list, just to name a few, Paul, Peter, James, John, Timothy, etc. all have scriptures throughout their books of the Bible in which God breathed through them, discussing how we're going to have afflictions and we will suffer in this world. And even to the extent in which I addressed just last episode, that some of us might even be persecuted for our faith. So I can't sit here now and tell you guys that, guess what? Life is going to be all good and sunshine and rainbows, and you're not going to have any issues again. And that's not the truth. We're going to have bad things happen, and there's nothing that we can necessarily directly do about that. And I know there's a question that we could get into, and people obviously always ask the question, well, why do bad things happen? God's a great, loving God. How do bad things happen? And truth is, that it would be a very, very deep conversation, and that is something that I will likely do a segment on in the future at some point, try to address it to a certain extent. But the ultimate answer is that we do not have a clear-cut, defined, for certain, fully understanding of that answer. For me, what I would say is that I learned that if you study deeply the book of Job, that it makes things make a little bit more sense to you. You can get a little bit better grasp because it does address countless things. It addresses the weather. It addresses the power in which God has and the ruling and dominion over Satan. It discusses why some things do happen and the perception of others of us, even when we might be a righteous person, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of things that we address. It's a very unique book of the Bible, especially the first 2 chapters and then the final, I believe, 4 chapters of Job. But that's one thing we could get into. Like I said, there will likely be a segment I'll do someday again about that and go more in depth on that aspect. Today, that's not the purpose of this episode. What this segment about today is that, guess what? Yeah, we're going to have trials. We're going to have tribulations. So what do we do about that? What do we do when those things do occur? Well, I will use one aspect. I think this is important because I just alluded to a little bit there with Job. And there's one concept that I think can bring a lot more certainty, can give a little bit more comfort when you understand this process. And so in the beginning of Job, the first 2 chapters of the book, it is discussing, before we actually get to know Job personally, we see an actual conversation between God and the devil, Satan. It's a very interesting first 2 chapters because It's this process where we learn so much about the spiritual realm. And that is certainly real. And we learn the conversations of how Satan and God do interact and so on and so forth. I said I'm not going to get too deep on this. I'm just going to give you guys a little backstory on this. And what we learn is that while Satan does work and there is evil, certainly, Satan needs permission. He is only allowed to do to the certain extent in which God allows it to occur. All right, so Satan can't just go do every evil and demonic aspect in which he wants to go do. God will give him a certain leash, if you want to use that example and that illustration, to allow Satan to do only to a certain extent of what he will allow him to do. It is with the confines of God's power in which he allows. God is always in control, and that's something that you have to remember from this. Satan does not have unlimited control. God has the power in which he will give a certain extended leash for whatever reason that might be to allow evil or bad things to occur. And in this example with Job, the restriction that God gave him originally was, well, you can't touch him. You could originally go and impact those around him. You could impact the weather. You could impact these other aspects. But what you cannot do is you can't lay a finger on Job. And that is what occurs. It does not occur because God confines and bounds Satan to what he's only capable of doing in that situation. And, a lot of people say, once again, well, why does God allow that? Like I said, that will be a discussion I can get into another time. But what an interesting perspective I read from David Guzik on this aspect was, how about we look at another aspect? What if we flip our mindset a little bit? And when we're in trials and tribulations, first of all, we understand that God is ultimately the one in control. Satan does not have the power to work infinitely in whatever he wants. God allows to only the certain extent in which he allows. But why don't we also flip that mindset a little bit and look at it from this perspective? Because throughout those first two chapters, what we see is God's extreme confidence in Job. He knows that Job is a good man, which is the only thing that as people should be concerned about, is what God thinks of us. And he's very confident. So God instills this extreme confidence in Job that he will be able to sustain whatever the enemy tries to bring upon him. And so when we have this mindset that sometimes, maybe even if not always, when bad things occur, it's God allowing the leash to the enemy to only a certain extent, and in that leash, what actually is occurring is God is doing that because he knows he has confidence in what we're capable of. And we may or may not be aware of what we're capable of, but God knows we're capable of it. And how do I back this up? Well, this isn't just a Old Testament theory. This is actually a New Testament thing. And this is more to the extent around temptations, but certainly this applies. And so 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13 reads this: no temptation has overtaken you except what is common to mankind. And God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, he will also provide a way out so that you can endure it. That's 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13. You realize what he says there. There's not a temptation that will ever overtake you, except what is common to mankind. God is faithful. He's not going to let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. So let's break it down a little bit. We recognize that when a bad thing occurs, it is under the confines and power of God and the certain extended leash in which he allows the enemy to have. And that leash could be perceived as why, how long, and how deep, or whatever that leash might look like, is based upon God's confidence in us and what we are capable of doing in and through the work of the power of God to be able to strengthen us to overcome whatever that issue might be. So that is something that you should instill a lot of confidence in yourself, recognizing the truth that when bad things occur, there is a reason for it. There is a confidence thing that God is placing upon you to be able to endure that because he knows where your faith is in God. And I think that's a very important mindset to have when we talk about our struggles in life, because it flips the perspective from, it's so sad for me, so pity, how could God leave me, to know God is trying to bring out something that maybe I am aware of or not aware of. And he's trying to get me to trust in him more. And ultimately, the God of the universe has confidence in what I'm capable of handling, because it will not be more than I can handle. And if you believe every word is God's breathed in the Bible and the word of God, then this is truth. So that's in regards to temptations, but how about other aspects? How about just you know what? Sometimes things are just hard and I just need some peace. I just need some help. And I was thinking about, well, how many words could I really use to describe that and tell you guys? But there's so many people you could go listen to. At the end of the day, you could go to, I guess you could say, a therapist, or you could go to other people and hear them just say words of encouragement and whatnot. But words of us are cool, especially when God speaks through us. But I figured the best way to possibly illustrate this and to give peace and comfort in situations, why don't I just read scripture? Because God's words, quite frankly, are much, much, much better and more valuable than mine are. And so what I did is I compiled a list of scripture, and I'm going to read a lot of these, and that's what I really want to go through. I'm going to read these scriptures, and I want you to reflect about it for a minute, and I'll explain them and break them down a little bit, but I want to just really establish and instill the amount of times throughout the Word of God, Old and New Testament, in which we see and understand the goodness of God, how He is our protector, how He is there for us, how He is our refuge, He is our firm foundation, how He is everything we need, and yet so much more to go through and combat things of this world and go through whatever trials and tribulations we will ever face. And so the very first one I made up on this list is Isaiah chapter 41, verse 10. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Isaiah chapter 41, verse 10. Folks, you don't need to fear, because God is your God. He's going to strengthen you, He's going to help you, and He will uphold you. You don't have to worry. God will be right there by your side, and He's going to give you what you need. He's going to strengthen you. He's going to help you. And if the God of the universe is going to strengthen you and help you, I think you're going to be in pretty good hands there. 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 7 reads this: cast all your anxiety on Him because He cares for you. Folks, I want to point this part out here as we get into this verse. I just said a minute ago, all words are God-breathed. All words are truthful. If you believe in that, then you should recognize that. And so when a very large but impactful word like all is involved, we have to realize that we sometimes just read right through that. We read it and sometimes want to take all and just read as if we're just reading a typical text. When he says cast all your anxiety, that doesn't mean 90% of it. It doesn't mean 99.9. That means every single anxious thought you have, any form of anxiety, you place it all upon Him. And why is that the case? Because He cares for you. So that is something that should be very much so established in our journeys. John chapter 14, verse 27, it reads this: peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid. God will give us all the peace in which we need. There is no doubt about that in my mind. He gives us peace that is so great we could never even fathom something being greater than that. You could think up of the greatest forms of peace in the world, and you won't ever be able to even get close to the peace in which God gives us. He's not going to let your hearts be troubled, and you don't need to be afraid. Don't let these things occur, because let us live in the peace in which God has given us. It is the greatest form of peace. There's no reason to get angry or sad or emotional and sad or any form of emotion. You can list them all right now. You can be in peace. This little side note, what I've come to realize over time is that, we talk about emotion so often in today's world. It's a big thing. Everybody wants to be emotional, and whether that be sad, whether that be a pity party, whether that be angry, there's so many emotions that come into the play today. And what I came to think and realize is at the end of the day, likely, and I cannot confirm this, is not 100% biblically correct per se, but we do know in the beginning of time, the world was perfect. There was no sin, and there was no death or decay or anything like that. And so everything was just perfect all the time. And so obviously there likely would not have been any form of emotion involved. There was just a sense of peace. Why would you be angry? And if one moment likely would not have been better than the next moment, because it was perfect. Every moment was perfect. And if it's perfect, you can't compare. And that's what we really look at in heaven. It's going to be perfect. It's paradise. There's no ifs, ands, or buts in that regard. And so what I came to realize is folks, this peace is what we have the capability in essence of living in earth. Now, there's obviously going to be trials and tribulations, don't get that twisted, but when we allow ourselves to become so much about an emphasis on emotion and what are emotions, how you feel, and what these things are, the answer should be you're in peace. Ultimately, that's what God created us for in the beginning of time. And when we go to heaven, that's going to be the case as well. And we have the opportunity to have the presence of God live upon us. The peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. That peace is given to you to live in. Now, yes, there's going to be trials and tribulations, but you have the opportunity to live in peace. Not to allow emotions to take over in any way, shape, or form, but to live in that peace that God's called us to, that he's given us. 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9 reads this. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9. I know this one's one that can get a lot of people a little bit riled up a little bit. Wait. You're telling me that I've got to go and boast about my weaknesses, the thing that I want to hide from everybody else, the thing that I really don't want to be exposed, that little bit of that little part about me that says, I don't want to let people know about my weakness. In fact, might I even add that there might be some of us that say, I don't want God to know about my weakness. Now, we know how foolish that statement would be, but so often we want to make these weaknesses disappear in the eyes of the world. No. That's not what we're supposed to do here. And in fact, if we have the boldness to proclaim and state that these weaknesses in which I currently possess, that they're only weaknesses. Yeah, we're human. That I can give these weaknesses to God. And if I do just that, his power will be made perfect in that weakness of ours. Because his grace is sufficient for us. Because we don't have to worry that our weaknesses, they're covered by the blood of Jesus Christ. We don't got to worry about none of those things. And that his power is made perfect. We get the power of God to live in and throughout us when we just boast about that and say, you know what, here's my weakness, God, take it over. You live in and throughout me. Let that power of Christ rest upon you in trials and tribulations and times of trouble. 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, verse 16, it reads this. Now may the Lord of peace himself give you peace at all times and in every way. The Lord be with all of you. This is Paul writing to the church of Thessalonians. And what we see here is that the Lord will give peace. Now he says, may you, and obviously we just talked about what it takes to be able to access and live out that peace. But the truth is that the Lord, we have the opportunity to have the Lord be with us at all times and then live in that peace. Isaiah chapter 43, verses 1 and 2 reads this. Do not fear, for I have redeemed you. I have summoned you by name. You are mine. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you walk through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze. Isaiah chapter 43, verses 1 and 2. I want to make sure I don't take a lot of these verses out of context. There's a lot of verses I could have added on, but they're specifically set for a certain context, and I didn't want to have that be confused. But what I do learn is this. One I know is a very common one that's used out of context is be strong, courageous. When that's God talking to Joshua to go overtake and overcome go into the promised land and go to war and those things. So is that essentially what we're going to live out and experience per se? No, it's not the same as some of these other verses I'm listing, but that doesn't mean it's not an example of God's power and what we're doing. And Isaiah 43, verse 1 and 2, you could potentially say it could get taken out of context, but truthfully, I feel comfortable saying this, that at the end of the day, this does apply to us actually. And even though it's being addressed to someone specifically, this can be addressed. So I want to break this one down because it says, once again, do not fear. And how many times do we have to say this? Do we realize how many of these verses talk about do not fear? I think we should get the point across. I think the point gets made pretty clearly that there's no reason for us to live in fear. Why? Because he has redeemed us. We are his. He has called us by name, and we later read that God knows all the hairs on our head. God knows us before we were ever born. And it says that when you pass through the waters, I'll be with you. When you walk through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze. And this is just an illustration. These are just giving examples. These are just giving, tough situations. I mean, let's be honest here. I'm not sure how many of us are ever going to walk through fire. And if so, obviously there's this unfortunate situation that could occur, but I'm saying likely on the day-to-day basis, that would be a pretty tough day if you ask me. A lot of us might go through struggles or whatnot throughout our day, but a lot of us aren't going to be walking through fire. So we're taking an extreme version, and it says, the flames will not set you ablaze, you will not be burned. All right. So some of the most extreme situations in which is being described here, you're not going to be really affected at the end of the day because you have the peace of God living upon you, and he knows you, and he's going to be with you. So I think that's very important to think about. Matthew 11, verse 28 reads this: "Come to me, all who are weary and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." Matthew chapter 11, verse 28. Here's a little details I want to give about this one. Studying through Proverbs, you learn a very large emphasis on hard work. It's a book of wisdom, and I've described before why I take 3 verses a day, and I want to try living out each one of those, or at least the one I view that stands out the most to me from that reading. And the truth is that it's this concept where we learn this rest, this balance of yes, you're supposed to live in rest and peace, and yet God's also calling us to work very hard, and he condones the lazy. He's very much so against it, and we read that throughout Proverbs specifically, very, very many times that discussed, and overall throughout the Word of God, we see it in other places. But you realize, okay, rest, hard work. Don't be sleeping too much, but rest. And it's this checks and balance system where it's like, how does this work? The truth is that what's being referred to here is not saying to shut it all down and go to rest and do that. There's a time and place for that, sure. But it's saying that we're weary and heavy laden. In this sinful world, because it's been fallen, we're going to have tough times. We're going to be times where we're tired, we're fatigued. That's not exactly what we're just referring to here. We know this is going to happen, but it's the spiritual rest that we can live in. We're going to have to work hard. We're going to have to push through. We're going to have to do these different aspects, but we can do it with God and his power working in and through us. And he says, essentially, come to me all who are weary and heavy laden. You know what that means? That means everybody go to God. And he's going to give you the rest you need. You ever realize that sometimes just because you rest your body for a day or so, it doesn't always fix everything? Because you come back from a vacation, you got to go back to work one day, and all of a sudden there's a lot more stress because not only do you have to go to work the next day, but obviously and likely you're going to have to be making up a lot of work too that you just missed out on. And so quite frankly, the whole mindset of vacation and rest and those aspects, it's not really going to restore you in all honesty. It can, yes, there are definitely, you can be changed and rested up in those situations. But the truth is that's not really what we're talking about here. That's not the internal rest that God refers to us to have and calls us to. So I think it's very important that we all need to go to God, and in that he will give you the rest, the true rest that we need will be instilled upon us. Romans chapter 8, verse 38 through 39 reads this: "No, in all these things we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. For I am convinced that neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither the present nor the future, nor any powers, neither height nor depth, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus our Lord." Romans chapter 8, verse 38 to 39. Do I really need to explain that one right there? I think that might be the highlight, the high of everything we could imagine and just how good God is. Nothing can separate you from him. No matter what situation you've got yourself into, no matter what situation you're currently in, no matter what's going on, he's right there by your side. How could anything be more comforting than knowing that God is right there, that nothing can separate you no matter what state of life you're currently in? Hebrews chapter 13, verses 5 and 6 reads this: "Because God has said, 'Never will I leave you, never will I forsake you.' So we say with confidence, 'The Lord is my helper. I will not be afraid. What can mere mortals do to me?'" Hebrews chapter 13, verse 5 through 6. This kind of ties together what I was referring to just a few days ago in the Monday show. There's a chance that we're going to go through persecutions depending on where you're at in this world. What can mere mortals do to me? Folks, we got to stop being concerned about the mortals, about us human beings. We're humans. Guess what? We're all going to die one day. That's the truth. Their capabilities and what's going to happen, we're all going to die. Some might be sooner than others, but we're all going to die. What we do know is that we have eternal life, and we all also have eternal life. It depends on which direction we're going to go. And so when we read this, we don't have to worry about what others think about me, what their judges are, what they could possibly physically do to me, because the Lord is my helper. I don't need to be afraid, because he will never leave me, nor will he forsake me. Matthew 19, verse 26. "But Jesus looked at them and said, 'With man this is impossible, but with God all things are possible.'" Matthew chapter 19, verse 26. I said I'm not going to give you guys out of context things. What this is referring to here is a situation in which Jesus is talking to someone and the discussion is going on about, well, how do I get to heaven? Can I give this much money? Can I do whatever it is to get to heaven? And he says, no, there's nothing you can do. It's impossible for a man to just go to heaven. You can't work for it. You can't earn it. There's nothing you can do about it. But with God, all things are possible when you go to heaven. So I don't want to make this sense, say that God's saying that, okay, I want to go win $1 million tomorrow. God's going to make that happen, and I can make sure and I have confidence tomorrow I'm going to wake up with $1 million. Okay. Can God do that? Absolutely. And we see that throughout the word of God, that he is capable of all things. That does not mean in this instance it can. But then again, $1 million is only $1 million. It is what it is at the end of the day. That's not what we're talking about here. $1 million isn't going to fix your internal suffering that you could be going through. It might help you for a day or two, a week or month, whatever it is. It is not going to fix the actual problem. You're just coding it over with something. With God, what truly needs fixing, the heart of you, it is possible to be fixed, and with God alone. Psalm 121 verses 1 through 2. I lift my eyes up to the hills. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. When we are in dire trouble, when we need help, our eyes need to go right up to God. I talked about this in a few segments before this. We need to take captive our thoughts. We need to make sure our thoughts align with God, and our mindset and our eyes need to be upon God. That's what we're called to do. Our eyes must always be lifted up upon God. That is where your help comes from. Your help can be done from others around you. Yes. Odds are it's God working in and through them, but that's a discussion for another time. The point is that your help at the end of the day will come from God. So call out to God and let him be the one that helps you. And guess what? We sometimes as Christians just want to state the obvious, and it's become just a typical word in which we utilize that God's the maker of heaven and earth. He's the creator of all things. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God, and all these different things, that God's eternal, never ending. But do we just sit down and realize what that actually means? You know, we talk about architecture in this world and these crazy buildings that get built around the world, and we praise it, and we talk about how cool it is, and this, that, and the third. Guys, we serve a God that created everything in this world. And if he did it physically from the beginning of time, created naturally, then he utilized the brains and the willpower of people to be able to build up something that's special in today's world. And so when we say those words, who made heaven and earth, God, we're calling out to the God who created all things. You will not regret that. There's no one more powerful that you can tap into and experience than the power of God. A couple more I've got for you guys. Psalm chapter 16, verse 8. I keep my eyes always on the Lord. With him at my right hand, I will not be shaken. Once again, keep your eyes on the Lord. You will not be shaken. He is right there by your side. You don't have to worry. In Matthew chapter 6, verse 25 to 34, it reads this. Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? Matthew chapter 6, verse 25 to 34. Worrying is a concept that's become far too done in today's world. A lot of people want to take this worrying concept and worry. Do you? Do you not? Well, let me ask you. I know one, for those that are listening to this in America, you hear a lot of people saying they're worried about the election and worried about these things. Do not worry. You hear a lot of people, financially in trouble and what could happen and worrying about that. Do not worry. You think about all these different aspects in which we're worrying about, but the truth is why? All worrying does is you deplete and you take away the blessing which God's given you at that moment. What is that blessing? Well, he's given you time. You could utilize that time to take a progressive aspect and get better as a person, as growth, or whatever the case may be, taking full advantage of every second of your life, because you can't add hours to your life. You can't do anything. There's no point in worrying. All worrying does is detour you from what you're actually called to do in that moment. Worrying is a distraction. Worrying is something that does not need to happen. You should be able to remain confident knowing that God will supply. Think about it, guys. The world, the animals that we live upon in this world, nobody's feeding them anything, specifically at least. It all functions perfectly in harmony, the way that God essentially created it to be. And yet they're all living. Why would it be any different for us, whom he came to earth to die for? The truth is that no matter what situation you're in right now, what I know is that God wants us to have our mindset on rejoicing always, to pray continually, always to give thanksgiving. And what I can think of is that no matter where you're at in life right now, if you're hearing this, there's at least one thing you can praise God for. You're breathing. You are alive. You have breath in your lungs. And actually, if you're hearing this right now, that's also something you could probably be thankful for. Why? Because you're able to hear God. You're able to hear and have a blessing of hearing. So the truth is that if you're breathing right now, it's for a reason. And I know for a fact that Jesus died on the cross for you. And if you truly do believe that Jesus is God and the death, burial, and resurrection did occur, then God has a place awaiting you in heaven. And there is for no reason that you should be sitting here in a position where you don't understand and you have to worry and be fearful and whatnot, because this is an eternal mindset you can establish and recognize that God is here for you. He loves you more than you could fathom or imagine. He wants fellowship with you. And you have an eternal home awaiting you. But for the time being, God has you in the palm of his hand. I emphasize that because this entire message was an inspiration, because I actually listened to the song by Brandon Lake about the palm of your hand, and it is truthful. God has us all in the palm of our hand. He is right there. He loves you, and he never wanted this to occur to begin with. He hates to see us suffering, but in the very beginning of time, our disobedience, it caused pain and suffering to occur. Since he gave us free will. Folks, he could have made us all, placed us all on this earth with the mindset and the emphasis to say, well, we're just people here that he's going to control, maneuver, and whatever that case may be. But no, that's not what he placed us here for. He gave us free will, and because of our disobedience, issues did occur. And he wants to help us to go through this journey together with us. He is reaching his hand out for us, and he wants each and every single one of us to trust in him and be able to walk down this journey with him. And so the most important thing I want you guys to realize is that a lot of people might say, well, I don't have friends. I don't have these close people. I don't have fellow brothers and sisters in Christ that can help guide me throughout this journey in this time and place. But let me tell you this, and this is what I can learn from personal experience. You are never, ever alone. There is not a moment in your life in which you are alone. In fact, God is right here by your side at all times. He sees you, he knows you, and he is right there ready to talk to you if you will just allow him to be there by your side. It is the greatest person you could ever imagine, because guess what? The presence of God, the presence of the Holy Spirit within you, in that communion relationship, nothing compares to that. There is nothing greater than you could ever imagine. He is the most powerful, loving, amazing being out ever. He is creation. He is the one that created everything. And he is right there by your side. You just have to trust in him and have fellowship with him. And there will be nobody greater to go through life than with him. So I say this to wrap this, conclude this. Let him protect you, guide, love, forgive, and walk through life together with him. And I don't think there's a better way to summarize this entire segment up than one of the most famous but yet impactful songs of all the Psalter, which is Psalm chapter 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Yet though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Folks, don't forget that. The Lord is by your side. He will shepherd you. He will guide you. There will not be a day in which you do not have your protector by your side. He will restore your soul no matter what time you are in. If you are in a time in which the enemies are present, if you are in a time in which there are persecutions and issues going on in your life, the Lord will be with you. He will anoint your head with oil. Your cup will overflow. He will be by your side. He will shepherd you. He will guide you. He will love on you. The mercy and goodness of God, they will follow you all the days of your life. It is more than you could ever fathom or imagine. And you will be able to then dwell in the house of the Lord forever. So no matter what place you are in life, trust in Him because He is by your side. He loves you more than you could ever fathom or imagine, and He just wants to be there right there with you. So trust in Him and live in the power and presence of what God's called you to. I want you guys to be able to reflect on that throughout this little break, and I'll see you guys in a few minutes. God bless you guys. If you were to have the ball in your hands the whole game, you're the guy for a whole season, 82-game season, how much do you think you're averaging?
Ball in my hand, 25, no doubt. Easy. 25, no doubt, easy. And that's just me knowing my ability and knowing what I can bring every night. Because I feel like, because I see like the little stats on Twitter, some games, they be like, when Cam Thomas plays this certain amount of minutes, he averages 30, or he plays, this amount of games with this amount of minutes, he averages 25. So I feel like if I have the ability to play with the ball in my hand, make the decisions, all that stuff, I feel like I can average 25 points a game easy, no doubt.
Staying consistent, I move with the clock. I'm in the zone, I'm not casting a stone. I'm finna stand on a rock, firm foundation. I got that dog in me, like 101 Dalmatian. I got girl with me, so I know that I'm still finna make it. I'm still finna take it. I hopped in the ring and I'm still going crazy. I cut off this thing like I just got a taper. I walk in the storm and then God gave me favor. I'm still going forward. I just had to lock in the Lord. I knew that I'm finna make it. Throwing my old self, he got deported. Shout out to the king and I'm finna take it.
Welcome back, everyone, to the SchuZ Show. I'm your host, Zach SchuZ Shoemaker. And this next segment I'm going to be getting into here now will be Hardwood realities, where the raw authenticity of the hardwood echoes truth. All right, so not a ton of stuff. It's not going to be a very extensive segment today, but I'm going to start with breaking news, or not breaking news. It happened a couple hours ago, I guess, now at this point in time. However, the only NBA news that I'm going to address today is that after 10 NBA seasons, Joe Harris has decided to retire from basketball. He played over 500 games in his career, 504 to be specific, with the Nets, Cavaliers, and the Pistons. He was a three-point contest champion in 2019 All-Star Weekend, 43.6% three-point shooter throughout his career. Now, for those of you that know, I am a fan of the Brooklyn Nets, or at least was. That was my favorite team growing up. I'm more of a neutral fan base now. But Joe Harris was somebody that I enjoyed a ton watching throughout his career, was a big part of my favorite Brooklyn Nets team when I was younger. And to see him retire, obviously great for him. He has one heck of a story, obviously going from bouncing around the league, pretty much having his career over, to being revived and having the career that he ends up having as a three-point contest champion, a 43, almost 44% three-point shooter in his career, made a lot of money throughout his career. So obviously it's huge and awesome to see the history in which Joe Harris had throughout his career and what he was able to create out of that. That being said, though, I have a segment I prepared for you guys today in this section. And what that is I wanted to break down for this upcoming season the 5 teams that are in the most pivotal of seasons. So how would I characterize the pivotal aspect? Well, it's a mixture of a couple of different things. Primarily, the basis around this is what teams in the NBA are going to need to make extensive changes potentially if the season doesn't go as planned, right? So essentially the qualifications for this is that you have to have a veteran team, right? A large investment in a certain team in which, there's maybe things haven't gone as planned in the years past. And if things don't go well this year, then a massive large-scale rebuild or fix could be in the future. And so that's how I came up with this list. We're not going to see a lot of young teams. Ultimately, what are they going to do? Just get younger, right? This is teams that have stars in place, veterans in place, that need to make moves if this year doesn't go as planned. So I'm going to give you guys my top 5 of those pivotal teams. There are 3 teams that just missed the cut. And I'll be honest with you guys, these 3 teams, along with number 5 for me, are almost interchangeable for different reasons. But the 3 teams that didn't make it are the Phoenix Suns, the Atlanta Hawks, the Miami Heat. I say Phoenix Suns because this year will only be year 2 of these guys together. And, there could be a trade or two, but, keeping Booker and KD could make a lot of sense there. So I don't really think that that's going to happen per se. Who knows what KD wants out or not. But, then the Atlanta Hawks, they would probably be number 1 or 2 on this list if they didn't already pull off the DeJounte Murray trade. Because that trade's already gone to play, now you got to give them a little bit of breathing room because, give them time to figure out this new core group, They've got new pieces there. They're going to try to figure out who fits well together and build out this new roster here with the Atlanta Hawks. And so they just barely missed the cut for that reason. Number 3, the Miami Heat that I have just sitting outside of the group. The Miami Heat's reason for not being in there is that although this pretty much is an emphasis around Jimmy Butler, I think that they have the guy in which they should build the team around already there, and that's Bam Adebayo. I said this a couple weeks ago when I discussed him. Bam is somebody that I've always respected, but that watching the Olympics, my appreciation for him grew tremendously. So what I look at for Bam is a situation where, is this a situation we continue to move forward with 2 guys at the helm, a dynamic duo between Butler and Bam, or if this year doesn't go as planned, do you just ship out Jimmy Butler and do you build around Bam? And so that's not really that crazy of a large-scale blow-up because you're not going to blow it up from scratch. You're not just going to go reset the entire roster and move on from the team. Bam will be a part of the future regardless heading next year, and that's a superstar player. So that's the reason they didn't make the list. That being said, let's get into my top 5 most teams that are in the most pivotal years in the 2024-2025 NBA season. Let's start off at number 5, the Golden State Warriors. I have them at number 5 because this is a team that's already made some change in Klay Thompson, yes. However, this is a team that is still, in essence, built to win now. You have Steph Curry, who I talked about on Monday's show. I am fully confident after that Olympic performance. He is still at a high enough level to contend. Draymond Green, while a lot of people hate him, I don't go into hating. I don't hate people. I hate one thing that's sin. I don't hate people. All right. And so I honestly, I respect Draymond Green, and I think it might be most in the world almost because a lot of people seem to hate him. I love Draymond Green. I don't think people recognize the value he brings to a team. Yeah, he does things a little bit dirty sometimes. So did many other all-time great players. What he's done for this team and the Golden State Warriors is tremendous, and I think he's still extremely valuable. All right. You have Andrew Wiggins there, who had a down year last year, but obviously that leads to why it's a pivotal season. And then you have a lot of young guys. And you have a young core in Brandon and in Kuminga that's, is kind of growing a little bit. However, if this season doesn't go as planned, or maybe even goes for the worse and they're picking in the lottery next season, could we see Steph Curry end up on another team? Is Draymond's Green time over? Could we see the Andrew Wiggins trade get done? Could this be an entirely new rebuild around Brandon Podziemski and Jonathan Kuminga and company? There's so many moves that could happen right now. I don't know what's going to happen, but I put them at number 5 for that reason. Number 4. This team right here, I had a whole segment on them a little bit ago as well. And this is just wild that they're even here. I didn't want to rank them because they should have blown this team up already. So I don't even know where to put them at because it's like we already know the conclusion. They're halfway done with their blow-up process. I don't know, but that's the Chicago Bulls. Y'all can check out the segment I had just a couple weeks ago on them. I don't know what to say about them. This team is not even built to contend. I don't think this is a playoff team right now, and yet they still have guys that are veteran, quote-unquote, stars in Zach LaVine, Nikola Vucevic. And so the Bulls, I just threw them there because this was, the pivotal season. Sure, if they're really going to run it with Lonzo Ball, Zach LaVine, and Vucevic, then go ahead. I think we already know the answer of how it's going to turn out. This team should have been shipped out and traded, but if we're going to run it back with them and they think this team can be good, then I guess you could say it's a pivotal season for them. Number 3, the Milwaukee Bucks. Coaching changes has happened. 3 coaches in a 1-year time span. You have Doc Rivers there now, and he has the whole offseason. If this year doesn't go as planned, what happens with Giannis? This team's had a lot of changes already occur now, but what happens with the Milwaukee Bucks if they don't have a good season this upcoming year? If Doc Rivers can't get the guys to go together, if this team doesn't all fit together, if Dame has a rough year, if they can't make some legitimate noise in the postseason, if there's injuries all over again, could we see this Milwaukee Bucks team, in essence, become a team that we see Giannis and Antetokounmpo 1 year from now on the trade block being moved and he wants out? That would be one of the biggest trades we've ever had in NBA history if that occurs. But that's why I think it's a pivotal season because they need a win. There's too much invested in this team, and they're getting older. If things don't go as planned, a massive large-scale blow-up could be on the verge. Number 2, the Los Angeles Lakers. They moved up on this list because of what I said Monday. After watching LeBron James and Anthony Davis play in the Olympics, there is no reason this team is not contending for a championship. They need the right pieces around them. And if that cannot occur, then major changes need to occur. I like JJ Redick as coach. I think he'll be fine. But is the roster okay? And if the roster's not okay, then what happens? Does LeBron want out? Does Anthony Davis eventually get asked for a trade? Or what happens there? I don't know what could occur. But that's why it is a pivotal season. Because if they go out there and we just saw what LeBron and AD is capable of, and they have another down year as a team, and things aren't going well, maybe they even miss the playoffs again. What then? Another coaching change, another situation. This is a very pivotal season because Anthony Davis is still in his prime. He could still want to go out and go try winning somewhere. So that's why I have them at number 2. And at number 1, I have the LA Clippers. Steve Ballmer will always be willing to make moves, so I don't see a full rebuild occurring here. However, Paul George is gone. Kawhi Leonard is still there. Kawhi wasn't even healthy enough to play in the Olympics. Something is not right, and I think we all know that anyways. So what I asked then is, okay, if this team is not going to go as planned, Paul George is out, and we never really got to even see Paul George and Kawhi play healthy for an entire season until this past year. And then, of course, the postseason turns horribly and we see the injuries occur. You have Kawhi Leonard. You have a lot of veterans on this roster. If what occurs this upcoming season is not pretty in the brand new stadium, then there could be a lot of issues that end up occurring, and the Clippers will need to make big moves to possibly reset this roster and rebuild or retool or some form of sense. This is a must-win season overall. Otherwise, big questions can be raised, and we'll have to figure out what do the Clippers do next moving forward. So that's my top 5 most teams that are in the most pivotal seasons heading into the 2024-2025 NBA season. To rephrase them, at number 5, the Golden State Warriors. At number 4, the Chicago Bulls. At number 3, the Milwaukee Bucks. At number 2, the LA Lakers. At number 1, the LA Clippers. This will be a big-time season. All 5 teams will have the spotlight on them, and there will be expectations for each and every single one of them this season. So that will be something to definitely keep an eye on, because if those seasons don't go well, there could be a lot of big-time players on the move within the next 365 days. So I'll see you guys in a couple minutes. I'll wrap up this show with Combat Currents right after this break. Appreciate everybody for tuning in once again. I'll see you guys here in a few minutes. God bless you guys. From the moment I was born, a ball was in my hands and a deep passion for sports was ignited. My dream was to play the game for as long as possible, but God had other plans. After battling with severe illnesses caused by black mold poisoning for nearly 4 years, I made the difficult decision to let go of my on-court dreams heading into my junior year of high school. However, I was determined to have one last victorious moment as an athlete, and that was achieved on February 9th, 2019, when I ran a marathon at the age of 16. That night, as I took a recovery Epsom salt bath, I felt God place on my heart the idea to start a podcast. Although I didn't know where to begin, the first episode of SchuZ Views dropped on March 11th, 2019. Over the next 1,183 days, more than 600,000 people tuned into 1,056 interviews. Then, on June 6, 2022, my final interview for over a year was released featuring Jameer Young. I never once thought that I'd be off the air for over a year, but the truth is there was something missing in me. At first, I thought creating a website would help fill that void, so I went and put together SchuZ.net, but nothing changed. Throughout the next month, I continued searching for answers, and eventually, God worked in the only way that would have gotten my attention at that point in time. Through something work-related. By the end of July 2022, my parents blessed me with the opportunity to build a studio. However, before breaking ground, the real change began. On August 3rd, 2022, my life changed forever. Once again, I happened to be taking a bath late into the night, and suddenly, an indescribable feeling came upon me. It was a profound urge to open up my Bible and read. I turned to 2 Corinthians chapter 4, and since that night, not a single day has passed without me spending time in the Word. You see, what was missing all along was Jesus. On August 6th, my dad and I began to lay the foundation for the next chapter of my career. Simultaneously, the foundation of who I was created to be was also being laid. Over the years, I had lost sight of my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I knew of God, but I didn't know Him, and I certainly was not following or living like Him. But day by day, the new me began to take shape. My former self's sole priority faded away, and I began to live out the acronym I often talked about, FJTFOE. It stands for First Jesus, then Family Over Everything. God became my everything, and He transformed me entirely. He helped me rediscover my love for family, running, lifting, playing basketball, giving back, the church, and most importantly, Him. This journey began with a craving to nourish my old identity, but God's hand was always in control, rapidly shaping my new identity. As God transformed me, He also grew my relationship with every member of my family. Together they stood by me and contributed to the person I am today. Through it all, Ephesians chapter 3 verse 20 manifested its truth in my life. The blessings I received far exceeded anything I could have imagined. The truth is that God's hand has always been there, but now I'm committed to following His path. Although I may look different, and my heart has undergone a profound change, I am truly blessed to announce the beginning of a new chapter. Starting July 24th, I will be launching my new show, the SchuZ Show, which will air on my YouTube channel every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time. I can't wait for you guys to join me in this next chapter. I'll see you guys soon, and may God bless you all. There is a funny aspect about you, and that's the fact that I don't think you necessarily even tried to, but there's been countless times in your brief NBA career already that you've made it viral. You've made memes of yourself, whatever it might be. One of which was in the midst of that 40-point streak. You obviously broke LeBron's record, and you made your comment saying about, well, I'm not really a LeBron guy, I'm a Kobe guy. And I don't think you even intended that to go viral. Now you have that.
Nah, not at all.
There's your Steve Nash moment during the Summer League. We know that aspect. I think that was after the second year. You had a fun, obviously, at one point. You have your branding that you've now done. When you look at all these, like, do you ever intend to expect something to go viral or be funny, or does you just end up happening, and then by the time you get back on your phone, you're like, oh, this already just went down, dang.
Bro, that's crazy. No, not at all. No, because even with my brand, like when a random person asks me, because random people always see like, oh, he's so serious, and I'm just like, bro. And then I say it all the time. Like I say it no matter what. And I said it at one time and it blew up. And I was just like, I mean, I said it. I've been saying it every time. Like somebody asked me that. So then, that blew up. And then the Kobe thing. I was just being honest. I mean, it's no disrespect to LeBron. Obviously, I
Yeah.
love looking at LeBron playing stuff like that. He's done a lot for the game and stuff. But it's just me being a fan of basketball. Me growing up with Kobe. Just my love for Kobe is like unmatched. So really that part. So really everything I say, I'm just like, I mean, I'm not really intending to go viral. I'm just speaking what's on my mind at that point. So if it goes viral, it goes viral.
Which one of the things that's happened so far, maybe even one that I've not listed yet, was the most surprising to you? Like by the time you got on your phone, maybe even someone else came and told you about it, you're like, dang, that really went viral?
The branding,
Mhm.
my brand. Honestly, I was never expecting that to go viral because I always said it. I always said the same thing, no matter what somebody asked me. That I always said it, and that went viral before. And then that one particular day, I woke up, and then the very next day or a few hours later, I don't really remember because we was playing Philly when I said it. We was playing Philly, and then when I said it, it took off, and I was like, oh man, I was not expecting that at all.
If you were to have the ball in your hands the whole game, you're the guy for a whole season, 82-game season, how much do you think you're averaging?
Ball in my hand, 25, no doubt. Easy. 25, no doubt, easy. And that's just me knowing my ability and knowing what I can bring every night. Because I feel like, because I see like the little stats on Twitter, some games, they be like, when Cam Thomas plays this certain amount of minutes, he averages 30, or he plays, this amount of games with this amount of minutes, he averages 25. So I feel like if I have the ability to play with the ball in my hand, make the decisions, all that stuff, I feel like I can average 25 points a game easy, no doubt.
Staying consistent, I move with the clock. I'm in the zone, I'm not casting a stone. I'm finna stand on a rock, firm foundation. I got that dog in me, like 101 Dalmatian. I got girl with me, so I know that I'm still finna make it. I'm still finna take it. I hopped in the ring and I'm still going crazy. I cut off this sin like I just got a taper. I walk in the storm and then God gave me favor. I'm still going forward. I just had to lock in the Lord. I knew that I'm finna make it. Doing my old self, he got deported. Shout out to the king and I'm finna take it.
Welcome back, everyone, to the SchuZ Show. I'm your host, Zach Shoemaker, and today This will be the final segment of today's Thursday, August the 15th show. I appreciate everyone for tuning in so far to everything, and obviously this will all be available right after this show is complete. What I'm going to get into the final segment of today's show will be combat currents, where I'll be unmasking combat currents of today's fight world. And this fight world is going to be a little bit chaotic this weekend. We've got a little bit of some stuff going down this weekend. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of preview. Then I'm going to go through some notes and some news that has obviously been moving on in the past few days since the last show. That being said, let's get right up on into this thing now. So I'm going to give you guys a little weekend preview for what we got to start off this segment. And UFC 305 is this weekend. It's going to be in Perth, Australia. And overall, it is not the most stacked card, to say the least, that we've ever seen. It is a good main card, I could say, especially the main event is going to be spectacular. The co-main is also a good one as well. So let's start off with the main event, Dricus du Plessis versus Israel Adesanya. This is going to be a big fight. Izzy's officially back now, and there's a lot on the line here. You know, personally, my opinion is that Sean Strickland beat Dricus earlier this year. So this should be Sean Strickland again. And I don't know if Izzy even necessarily should have a title match right away. However, this is what we have. It's still going to be a massive fight. And what you have now is a very interesting division here in the middleweight division with a lot of big names involved. And Dricus, who is the current champion heading into this, obviously we know that he has power. We know he's a good striker. And, you know, he beat Sean Strickland earlier this year. A very, very debated win, but he had a win nonetheless. And so he comes in for the first time defending his belt now after that win over Sean Strickland, and things will get interesting this weekend. Can he maintain his winning streak? Can he beat Izzy now? On the flip side, Izzy, who's one of the most notable UFC fighters of all time, he makes his return now. He's a two-time middleweight champion, and he's going to look to be able to come out and get his belt back for the third time of his career now. So these two guys obviously have a little bit of history together. We know this division has a lot of history as well. And so it's going to be a very intriguing fight, to say the least. Izzy has a massive fan base, as we all know, but his striking ability is spectacular. We also do know that, you know, he has a tough chin. You know, he does not go down easily per se. But personally, when you look at this, you know, I wouldn't be shocked if we see something where, you know, we end up just passing the belts around. You know, there's four names that we really all look at right now. Between these two, Dricus and Izzy, then you have Strickland, and then on top of that, then you have the fourth guy, Robert Whittaker. All of these guys are guys that are capable, are deserving potentially champions, and have a chance at it. And I'll talk about in a second. You know, obviously, I think the winner of this fight should go get Sean Strickland. Strickland should get a shot at getting his belt back again, hopefully by the end of this year. If not, it'll be very early next year. However, this will be a fight that comes down to, you know, it's going to be an interesting fight, to say the least, though. I do say, you know, if I were to make a prediction right now, I would have to say that I see Izzy winning. The reason I say that is Sean, I believe, won the Dricus fight. I honestly don't know how Dricus won that fight. I know a lot of people are in unison and agreement with me in that aspect. And so I think Dricus is good. However, does he beat Izzy? I'm not sure. Although I would not be shocked, you know. And ultimately, I would prefer to see the Sean Strickland-Dricus rematch. We already saw what Sean Strickland did to Izzy. He won that fight by domination. So seeing a rematch of Strickland and Duplessis would be a big-time fight to see. Now, the co-main event, though, you have Steve Erceg. He's going to go out there and he's going to fight Kai Kara France. And this will be an interesting fight. Kai Kara, he's 24-11 in his career. Steve Erceg, he's 12-2. Now, this is going to be a chance for a title eliminator fight. The winner of this should be able to get one of those opportunities. And it'll be interesting, you know. Kara France is coming off of a couple losses now. And we'll see how this fight turns out. You know, it's going to be interesting. I know Steve Erceg has a lot of power. He's one of the more entertaining fighters to watch. And so that will be an interesting fight. But that's what I've got for you guys for UFC 305. There's obviously a few other big fights that's going to be on that card. I just want to make sure I address the main event, co-main event for this segment here tonight, since I don't have time for the full-on 305 preview. But the big news is that once 305 wraps up and we see what all goes down on Saturday, that then we all get to be in anticipation for what will be a massive event going down at the Sphere in September. So that's going to be really a massive event, a much bigger one in terms of names that's going to be on that card. What Dana White says will be the greatest combat sporting event ever put on, and maybe even the greatest sporting event ever put on. So we'll see what all unfolds there. As for the boxing world, there is a solid fight going down this weekend, and that's going to be the super middleweight title bout between Christian Mbilli and Mark Heffron. I have Christian Mbilli winning this one with ease. I think Christian Mbilli is one of the more underrated fighters in the world. I'm very, very high on Christian Mbilli. 27-0. He's got 23 KOs. His power is extreme. He's an incredible fighter. He seems to always pretty much be in control throughout the majority of his fights. He is powerful. He's aggressive. He's currently WBC Continental America's Super Middleweight Champion. That weight class is pretty much led by Canelo. He did just forfeit his one belt, though. So there is going to be a little bit of openings now in that weight class. And if we're going to be honest, obviously we all know the fight we want Canelo to fight, right? We all want David Benavidez. However, Christian Mbilli would make for a more interesting fight, in my opinion. I like I said, I'm very high on Christian Mbilli. I love what he brings to the table. I think this is going to be a very, very good win for him. Now, he is fighting Mark Heffron. He's 34-1. He has 24 KOs to his name. But I think Christian Mbilli wins this. Do I think it's going to be by KO? I'm not positive on that aspect because Mark Heffron he's known for his resilience. He's not a guy that's just going to back down. But, Christian Mbilli, I do believe and I have a lot of confidence in him being one of the premier, most underrated fighters in the world. So that's you guys' preview for this weekend, what to expect on Saturday. Now, there was a lot of news, though, I want to go into for this next part of the segment now to wrap this show up. And there's been a lot of movement going on the past couple of days, and so let's get right to it. First of all, Nick Ball versus Ronnie Rios is reportedly now being finalized for Ball's WBA featherweight world title on October 5th in Liverpool. He had a big win against Ray Ford on the Saudi card just a couple months ago, so we'll see what all unfolds there. I do think Nick Ball will win that one. He gets to go back home, fight in Liverpool. I do like Nick Ball. That was an interesting fight against Ray Ford. I think he did win that, though, for Nick Ball. So he gets the next fight pretty much scheduled. Then we saw interesting news, though. Devin Haney. He is now hinting at a return today with His Excellency. And they were going that this could be a potential event to take place in Saudi Arabia. And the reason we could assume that this was all going down is that there was a Twitter interaction between Devin Haney and His Excellency. And Devin Haney tweeted this, "About time I come back." When I asked about that situation, I know there was a lot of rumors that he could take about a year off. Brutal fight. I think he needs as much recovery time as he possibly can get. Does he fight in the Saudi card? When will that be is really the big question now. I think he obviously could use as much rest as possible. And I think the fight we all want to see. I mean, we know that it no longer has a belt involved, but who would not want to see a rematch of Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney in America? That's a massive fight. Seeing that unfold when Garcia's suspension's up is the fight that I think most people want to see. But if we see Devin Haney return, he's healthy and 100%, by all means, would love to see him go out there and fight. Then we see another fight. Bakram Murtazaliev. He is going to fight Tim Tszyu for Murtazaliev's IBF Super Welterweight World title. It is now in advanced negotiations to headline Al Heyman's PBC first non-pay-per-view show on Amazon Prime. That will be going down in Orlando. Now, it's not finalized yet, but this is huge. Tim Tszyu is a guy that I think deserves a belt. He should have a belt currently. And the reason that he does not have it is because of the incident that occurred with Sebastian Fundora, which created one of the most bloodbath-like fights we've ever seen. The big cut hindered him from being able to go fight Virgil Ortiz on the Saudi Arabia card in LA. So what I look at here is Tim Tszyu could get back on the map and get his belt back. I think he deserves a championship belt. He is one of the premier fighters in the game. And so this is a good fight. This is a very interesting fight that is going to be exciting to watch on October 19th. We hear word now that Fabio Wardley versus Fraser Clark. There's a rematch for Wardley's British heavyweight title has now been agreed upon. On top of that, we also found out that the Triple B of C has now once again ordered Solomon Decrees to defend his English heavyweight title against Moses Toma next. Those purse bids will be September 11th. That is another fight that we're going to look forward to. I'm very high on Moses Toma. I think he is a future of heavyweight boxing. He is sensational. A lot of the people are very, very high on him. He looks to be legit. He is extremely young still. I believe 19 years old. He is going to be the future of the heavyweight division. Still is a few years ahead of him. But as he continues to work his way up, he's somebody to keep an eye on for those in America to watch. Then we see Shakur Stevenson versus Joe Cordina is now being discussed for as a potential fight for Shakur's WBC lightweight world title. That's what Eddie Hearn has revealed. Now, he said the deal is not close to being done, but this does raise question here as to what is going to be going down, because for Shakur, this was a fight that we were hyping up could be Tank, and I said, okay, I don't really want Tank at this point in time. I want Tank's fight to happen next year for undisputed. Okay, great. So then we heard Zepeda was the fight to make. And then Shakur comes out today and says Zepeda does not want that fight, that Oscar De La Hoya and company is trying to, push that fight back as far as it possibly can before he gets the belt. I want him to get the belt. But if that's on the table, then what else is Shakur going to do? And, Joe Cordina is a name that we look at. It's not a big name. It probably will turn out to be a boring fight, let's be honest. But for those that especially don't like Shakur's style. However, the thing that's interesting here is what Eddie Hearn is positioning. And here's what I can kind of decipher from this. Joe Cordina is a big fighter, a big name fighter, has a lot of attraction out in the UK. Therefore, obviously, that's where Eddie Hearn's from and whatnot. Having Shakur become a big name and grow his brand, which is what Eddie Hearn is tremendous at. He's the best at growing brands. He knows he's mastered that game. Getting Shakur to now become a global brand is something that would be huge. We know Shakur does not have the knockout capabilities and whatnot to become the big name. A lot of people in America aren't the biggest fans of watching him fight. But if he can go get respect across the entire globe and by going into one of the biggest boxing markets in the world, which is in the UK, that would be mega for him. And so I think if you can go out there, make light work of Joe Cordina. I don't want to say light work because every fight, anything could happen. We know that's how boxing works. But if that is what can occur in that fight, that is something to definitely keep an eye on, because then you can see Shakur starts to grow up and build that global presence and brand. And all this will come together, hopefully, for an eventual Tank Davis-Shakur Stevenson fight. Another breaking news that we also saw is that on Boxer, Martin Bakole, he has named his 3 heavyweights that he is now targeting for his next fight. Those 3 fights are Zhilei Zhang, Ajet Kabayel, and Joseph Parker. All 3 of those would be interesting fights. I think we can all admit that Zhilei Zhang, that's the fight that I think a lot of people would like to watch. 2 big guys with big-time power going at it. That would be interesting to see. Joseph Parker's an interesting fight as well. He's been someone that's kind of slid underneath the radar. We know the top 2 dogs are Fury, Usyk. We know the guy that's up next, especially if he gets past Dubois, which I think he will, and AJ. That's your top 3. And this is this little gap that we've now formed, and people forget that Joseph Parker is right there. He pretty much ended Deontay Wilder's career, and then he went and beat Zhilei Zhang, who then also officially pretty much ended Deontay Wilder's career. Parker's had a really good 6-month span there, and I think if we can see him fight another big fight soon, would be great, because there's this gap. He's kind of just independently sitting that number 4 spot because he's not quite ready to go. He doesn't have a chance to go fight AJ right now, nor does he have a shot to go and get Fury or Usyk, but he's also established himself far more to get some of those guys behind him. But if we can get a fight with a guy like Martin Bakole, Joseph Parker, I'd be a big fan of that. But my favorite of those groups right there, Zhilei Zhang, Martin Bakole, would be huge. Now, if that's for boxing news, now a couple other UFC things I want to address. Dana White has press conference this past week as he gets ready for 305. He said 2 big statements. One of which is that Dana White announced that Conor McGregor will not be fighting this year. In 2024, McGregor will not be fighting. Remember, he was supposed to be fighting a couple months ago at 303. That did not end up coming to fruition or occurring. So therefore, we had a little bit of uncertainty. We know the whole injury issue that occurred there. And the presumptuous idea was that, okay, well, it's his toe. He should be back, bare minimum by the end of this year. And so to hear that he's not going to be back raises a few questions. It raises questions on the couple aspects that I wanted to think about. One of which is this all about the injury? Obviously as the injury, McGregor made it clear that he does not want to fight unless he's 100% because he's fought so many times throughout his career not being 100%. And if he is going to return, he wants to be 100% healthy. Understandable. But this is the fight game, and I don't know how often guys actually go into the ring or into the cage or whatever the case may be at 100%. It's just the fight game. Regardless of which combat sport you're looking at, I don't know how you're 100% going into any form when you step in to perform. So that is one thing I want to raise. And so the second thing is what exactly is causing this now? I know Dana White discussed it. I don't recall which podcast it was, but he was discussing, what they have to do for the UFC to get a Conor McGregor event to occur. It's got to pretty much be in Las Vegas. You have to have a city that's able to handle that. It's going to be a large-scale promotional aspect. So when you put all those pieces together, it's not an easy thing to get a Conor McGregor fight set up. Now, if Conor McGregor is going to fight as a business decision, you're going to make that fight happen. So that's why a lot of things are happening, like where you're at a point now, Michael Chandler has been sitting around waiting forever now. I don't know if he's ever going to fight. You've pretty much had his career held up waiting for McGregor, and we don't know if this is even going to happen until 2025, if even then. Now, Dana didn't lead on to anything saying it's not going to happen next year, but we have to look at this and say, okay, when is this going to occur? Because we're already going to be at a point where, at bare minimum, we're looking at 6-7 months from when the original fight was scheduled to occur, and it still will not happen. So obviously, you have to start thinking, are we ever going to get it? The question is, I don't know an answer to that. Are we going to get McGregor versus Michael Chandler or McGregor versus anybody ever again? I'm not going to give a definitive answer there, but it is starting to look more and more so like we're not going to see McGregor back fighting again because, I don't know what's holding him back. Now, hopefully we can come back and Dana White clarifies something and we see that he's going to fight next year. That would be huge to watch just to see him at least fight one more time. But, he doesn't have to. He's accomplished everything that McGregor could possibly want. He's become one of the most successful athletes of all time financially, talent-wise, name-wise, branding. He's got his mind so together overall, and he has got an acting career he's now heavily involved in. He's got himself generational wealth. He's set himself up. He's a Hall of Fame UFC fighter. He's an all-time great athlete, one of the most iconic athletes to ever live. What else is there really to accomplish for McGregor? The desire to still be a fighter is obviously within him, and if he wants to do it, then by all means, I think we all would love to watch him fight. However, he's accomplished everything you really could in sports. There's not much more in this realm for him to accomplish. He's got a massive business. He has all the money in the world. He's got an acting career he's now going after. So if he wants to move forward, by all means, he has the right to do so, and that's A-okay. On the flip side for Michael Chandler, though, things got to start being made there. I understand he wants this big fight, but if this big fight never happens, your entire career has pretty much gone down the drain now. And that's an unfortunate thing to see because he was a very talented fighter. He still is. I have to assume he's a still good fighter based upon what we've last seen, which was a long time ago. But, is Michael Chandler something that we're going to be able to go see fight again? I don't know, but he should probably be making some business decisions now. Who is available? Who is another big fight you can make? And does he even still want to continue, which I'm assuming so. But, obviously his career has been just sitting around waiting for Conor McGregor in this massive mega payday fight. So I'm not sure what's going to happen in terms of that fight, but that was very interesting news that Dana White does say that Conor McGregor will not fight this year. The last thing I will say is I alluded to this when I was discussing the main event for the UFC 305 this weekend, but officially Dana White confirmed that Sean Strickland will fight the winner of Dricus du Plessis and Israel Adesanya. So that's something to keep an eye on because that is a fight that I think, like I said, if I could put a dream scenario, I would like to see the rematch of Strickland and Dricus. I think Strickland won that first fight. I think a lot of people would agree with me on that. We could have them face back up again and fight, and I think Sean would come out victorious there. But, that is what it deserves. I know a lot of people will look at it and say, well, Robert Whittaker, he put on a massive KO display a few months back in the AUAU, what was the Saudi card, that fight night card on Saturday, whatever that day was. I forget what it was off the top of my head. But Robert Whittaker obviously had a massive KO there. Now we know he's going to go fight Kazma in a couple months. So if this all comes to fruition, does he deserve it? Sure. But that's why this division is stacked right now. You've got 4 guys that are more than deserving of a title shot or to have a chance at it. And, Robert Whittaker would probably then get the next shot. Could he go fight Izzy again or something along those lines? Sure. But overall, I think it's good to see that Sean Strickland will get the winner of this next fight. And I know a lot of people said that, people were blaming Strickland. Why doesn't he just go fight Whittaker to officially get that cemented, locked-in spot for the title fight? This is probably why. If Dana White confirmed he's going to get it, he's going to get it. I think he deserves it. And so we can look forward to that. Now, Strickland will be ready to fight immediately. We know he's always ready to fight. The question is, when does this fight occur? Dricus is not someone that seems to want to fight for more that often. Could we see it by the end of the year? That'd be great. I wouldn't be surprised if we see it early next year in 2025. However, we should be able to expect that Strickland versus either Izzy or Dricus du Plessis will be going down next year or early or later this year. So that's what I've got in store for you guys in terms of combat currents. A lot of stuff, a lot of news been going down the past few days. A lot of things being set up for potential fights in the future. So enjoy the weekend, you guys. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday night and Friday. Saturday will be a great day. We have, like I said, UFC 305, Christian Mbilli card will be going down. So enjoy you guys' weekend. I will see you guys back again on Monday. I appreciate everybody for tuning in once again. The show will be available to watch at any point. You guys can rewatch the live stream. I'll also be clipping it up and putting the separate interviews and segments on the respective YouTube playlists on my channel. So make sure to subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. I thank everybody for tuning in once again. I hope you guys have an incredible weekend, and may God bless you guys all. SchuZ out.